garbage payment, so it would had my garbage bill about 13 years. A very unusual payment. I keep paying my $35 payment, whatever, for garbage every 2 months. But nonetheless, I didn't receive any notice about it. The county treasurer said they sent 3 delinquent notices on my property taxes. The only one I ever received was actually the day that I came home from paying the property taxes on July the 5th. On July the 2nd, the Treasury office, I had some back and forth with the county clerk and the treasurer. I think it was Leslie Hyde anyway that contacted us in about the 3rd week of June. Sometime, after the 20th. I don't know what the date exactly, but she let us know, that they had this large return item that they needed to take care of. That was a check from me for $2,914.60. She didn't realize that they had this issue, I guess, until an auditor came in and audited their books and said, "You've got to clear out these return items." And so she called, and I, immediately, yes, that's my property tax payment. And they received it on November 29th. It's the full amount, exact amount that I owed for my property taxes. But she, I thought, would be able to just go to the treasurer and take care of this, and process the payment correctly. But that was not the case. She was informed that she had to send the money back to me. And on July 2nd, the treasurer's office cut a check for this $2,914 that they'd had at that point for over 6 months. Actually, anyway. And I was forced to come in on July the 5th, pick up that check, go to my credit union, deposit the check, get a new cashier's check. I had a new cashier's check made out for the same amount, came back to the treasurer's office and gave it to them to make payment on my property taxes. But they have no way, apparently, without the council approving it, to correct an error like this, without basically saying, when I made the payment, the first amount that came out of the payment was, what was the amount anyway? The past due amount owing for interest and for late fees or whatever. And then they applied the remainder towards my my property tax bill. So it still left my property taxes owing of about $247 or something in taxes, or in interest and penalties for this payment being late. The problem is I made the payment on time. I made the payment to the correct place and for the correct amount. But all I can show is I did get from the credit union. There are 2 things here: the proof of payment for the electronic transmission of what actually was sent to the county, and also the payment details that come from my account, because I set up this payment item in bill pay service. So the thing I guess that I would want to point out is the payment details that came from our credit union, my credit union, to the county, shows an account number of 000037117, which happens to be my parcel number and the account number that's on my property tax statement that I get sent. And of course the amount is the exact amount for the property taxes. One thing that was in my payment instructions that got truncated apparently is that my payment instruction says that the payment goes to the Morgan County Treasurer - property tax. The payment instructions electronically that came through the ACH just said Morgan County. It was truncated, and so it was left, I guess, for the county or for the bill pay service that you guys use to interpret where does this money go. So this account number 2971 that was put on the payment, that whatever the transaction that the county processed, that is my garbage bill account number, but that was not on the instructions that came to the county with this payment. So I don't know who put the 2971 on there and removed my parcel number off of the account number for that payment, but I have to assume it was either the bill pay service that the county contracts with, or it was somebody in the county. And I don't care to, try to figure out who's to blame, but I don't want to pay the interest and penalties that have been assessed to me since I paid the county my property taxes on time. But I don't have any recourse except for to have the council waive those penalties. Otherwise, I'm still showing delinquent right now, and I still have to pay the past due taxes and fees.
So is this for
interest.
the property located at 5706 Monte Verde Drive?
That is correct.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we waive the penalty and interest for the 2023 property taxes for 5706 Monte Verde Drive, Mountain Green, on the basis that the taxes were timely paid.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
I'll make a quick comment. Sorry,
Yes.
that was good because it was quick, but there weren't any other fees on your end from your credit union or anything like
No,
that.
no. I just felt it was not right that I should have to pay all the late penalties.
Sure,
and
yeah. Sounds like a simple mistake, but kind
Yes,
of compounded
yes.
due to time.
It's just interesting that, my first instinct, I'm actually a financial institution examiner, and so I look at this kind of stuff, I understand it, but how did it go undetected? And, how did I not receive any notice of past due payment on my property taxes until late in June, 6 months after the payment? But I actually requested contact information for your auditors so I could ask them or inform them that they should be looking at this. I believe that there was a recommendation that they process those return items for the garbage service in December or something rather than waiting till the auditors arrive, but that's all I know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Leslie, we actually need to adjourn our commission meeting and convene as the Board of Equalization, and then we'll do it in reverse here. So I'll look for a motion to adjourn the commission meeting and convene as the Board of Equalization.
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to know why before I'm voting.
Because the statute of appointing a hearing officer is the statutory authority of the Board of Equalization,
The commission
which the
doesn't do it,
commission is the
BOE.
Board of Equalization. So you have to enter into your capacity as Board of Equalization to make the
That's
nomination.
all I need to know. Aye.
Did we notice it correctly?
Motion
on the agenda?
passes and is unanimous. Okay, Leslie, do you want to present this, or is this, we have the information in our packet. I don't know
Yeah.
how much more you want to present on this, but.
Yeah, I really don't have anything to present other than his
Okay.
names.
So this is a resolution of the BOE, Board of Equalization, appointing Kevin Yule to act as the hearing officer.
That be for indefinitely or just for a period of time or what?
Just for this year.
Just for this year?
For
So every year
2024.
we need to go.
Yes.
You haven't in the past, but you do things right now.
Yeah, we're trying to.
Thanks, Kate.
I'm assuming this is going to be
It will be
Resolution
resolution,
CR
sorry.
24-01, since this is a BOE resolution?
Correct.
And this is the first one we've done this year, right? So it'll be Resolution CR 24-0.
Does that
It-
whole thing have to be read?
No.
So before you do that, so when you're doing this, we're under the Board of Equalization right now.
Correct.
But that is the same number as our CR, County Resolution 24-01.
So it'll.
So how do we change that?
It would be CR 24-01-BOE.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair, that we approve resolution Morgan County Board of Equalization appointing Kevin Yule to act as a hearing officer, resolution CR 24-01-BOE.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes and is unanimous. We
Thank you.
Look for a motion to adjourn as the Board of Equalization and reconvene the County Commission meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we are now on to action item 3. Josh, Wildcat Storage Plat Amendment.
Thank you. This is Wildcat Storage Plat Amendment, application number 24.034 for the property located at 5833 and 5843 West Canyon View Circle in the Canyon View West commercial subdivision. The property is zoned commercial highway. Several months ago, I believe, around April, the Wildcat Storage site plan received approval from the County Commission. During that hearing or the public meeting, it was discovered that there was a property line that would bisect some of the buildings that were proposed. And as such, they were directed as one of the conditions of approval that they needed to get a plat amendment approved to consolidate both of those lots and erase the line that in between the two lots. The applicant submitted a plat amendment, which is before you now. It has gone through several rounds of review. The county engineer has recommended approval. The county surveyor has also given it a conditional approval. I believe there's minor changes, if any, on the part of the surveyor, but those will be corrected and caught before the surveyor will sign. And so as such, staff is recommending approval of the plat amendment to consolidate the two lots into a single lot. And if Jeremy could go to the end and kind of to the maps in the staff report. Kind of show you what's going on. I can.
I think most of us have it up on our.
Okay,
devices.
on your. Okay, I didn't realize you had it on.
Go
your
one more
devices.
page.
Yeah, one more page. Thank you. So the red outline is what the property will look like after the consolidation of the two lots. There's a property line along the edge where the red line goes northeast and then kind of goes northwest a little bit. At that location, the property line between those two lots is what will disappear. If you have any questions, I can answer them now. Otherwise, staff is recommending approval.
So it was lot 1 and lot
8, I believe.
8 is going to be now just lot 1?
Probably lot 1A.
Lot 20 is what it says now. On the
It probably won't be lot 20 when the recorder. It'll probably be lot 1A to indicate that it's been amended. We'll make sure that's updated.
questions for staff?
Josh, do you know if there's any easements on this property?
The easements, my understanding, I don't believe that they go along that property line. The utilities are in the streets, so there are utility easements along the streets and along the other property lines, but I'm not certain that there are there or not.
Yeah, I thought there might be one there, and that I guess in the future might want to look into if they need the full 20 feet. I know there's been some adjustments recently on that, so they might not need the full 20 feet. Just a thought.
That's on the north side of the middle property line, or the
northwest corner
The northwest corner. Okay.
area.
Yeah, that's not changing though. The property line in between the two is what's being consolidated.
Oh, yes, correct. It was just a comment.
Oh yeah, I thought for a second there I had missed an easement along that line. I'm like,
Nope.
What is the area that's south of the southernmost boundary of Lot 8?
The area to the south?
That lot 9, is that what you're talking
No,
about?
Well,
directly to
is
the
it part of Lot 9? Or is
It's
that kind of strip?
that strip is part of the lot directly to the east.
It is
and
part of Lot 9.
It is. It is a canal that connects the stormwater runoff to the property to directly to further to the west.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. With that, we'll look for a motion on item 3.
I move that we approve the Canyon View Commercial West First Amendment application number 24.034 for the consolidation of 2 lots approximately located at 58, 33, and 5843 West Canyon View Circle within Mountain Green, based on the findings listed in the staff report dated August 20th, 2024.
Second.
A motion, a second to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. All right. Josh, you're up still.
Thank you.
Canyon View Commons Commercial Site Plan.
Yep. So the applicant is the same, Kelvin Judd, for application number 24.008, which is site plan approval for the Canyon View Commons Commercial Site Plan, which is on the screen. This application is proposing approximately 24,000 square feet of total office space in 5 different buildings. The buildings contain either 2 units or 3 units, as indicated on the plan. Parking is being provided on the site itself, as well as an adjacent parcel where there is a well protection zone. I'm not entirely sure who owns the well there, but the well protection zone you can see by the circle around it, and then the parking would be around that to protect the
Parking would be an allowable thing to put on top of the well zone.
I believe so, yeah. Between the 2 sites, I believe they have enough parking. There is a conditional use permit that they applied for this application, and that conditional use permit was to allow for the parking on parcel A to encroach within the front yard setback. In commercial highway, that's 25 feet. They're proposing a 10-foot setback, and my understanding is that they're proposing to put in some additional trees to increase the screening and kind of landscape coverage at that location. Planning Commission heard this item at their last Planning Commission meeting, and they recommended approval. For that, they did have one comment, or there was one comment about the parcel A parking, about how it was going to be tied down strictly for Lot 7. Mr. Pohl is or Val Paul is in the audience right now, and is in attendance to speak to that. So I don't know if you want to call him up to talk to him about that.
Sure. Great.
So the parcel A is owned by the Mountain Green Subdivision Water Association, and as stated, the circle is the Zone 1, and an allowed, something that's allowed on that is a parking structure, as long as there's a way for the water to drain away from the well source, which this does. And trying to think if there's anything. Oh, and there's going to be a tie-in there'll be a new well site, a new well house that's going to be eventually there. So the association's on board. They've given me permission to use it just for parking, and then that's going to be tied to Lot 7. It's not going to be used for Canyon View Commercial as an entire project, just as additional project parking for Lot 7.
So is that pursuant to an easement agreement?
Yes, but it's a long-term perpetual lease agreement that says it's going to always be used for parking.
So is that square in the middle? Is that where the new pump house will be?
That's where the existing one is. The new one's going to be.
So the well will still be where it's at. You're just going to
Still
build
be
a new
within that.
house. Okay.
So there's a cross-property access agreement that's in place, but then there'll be a perpetual lease that will say, parking's allowed for this particular spot.
So I guess I'm asking the question because if we're going to utilize that space to meet the parking requirements, I think that we need to get a copy of the agreement that provides for that parking. Whether it's a long-term lease or an easement that's granted in perpetuity, but I think we need to get a copy of that if we're going to rely on that for parking for this Lot 7.
Is parking, this is just additional parking, is my understanding, it's like bonus parking.
Do they already meet the parking requirements without it?
I cannot say whether they meet the parking without it or not. Our code allows for net parking calculations. We don't have any building plans showing what the footprint is going to be. Our code allows you to pull out all the hallways, kitchens, bathrooms, storage spaces, and things like that. So I would imagine after you pull out all of that for this flex space where you have a garage and then an office space, they would probably meet the parking on site, but without floor plans, I can't definitively say.
In your meeting the other night, the August 8th meeting, there was a lot of discussion on how many total parking spots are there. This is not going to be parking just for Lot 7. This is going to be parking for other developments, or is it only Lot 7?
No, Mr. Paul has clarified that it's only going to be for Lot 7, and there is a cross-access easement as well as an agreement. We just, if it's approved for that, then we would need a copy of that agreement, either recorded and attached to the property so we can track it easily, as well as uploaded to the project files.
Okay. Because you were saying that in that meeting that it was, that there was 99 parking stalls
Between the two properties.
between the two properties. I thought this was one property.
Lot 7 is one, parcel A is another. Between the two, you have approximately 100 parking spaces.
Okay, all right, got it. So what is that other area right on the very bottom?
That is the vet clinic parking lot that is being shown there. It's an adjacent lot that's providing their own parking as well.
So it is not part of, okay, I see it there. Lot 6, okay, got it. Go up to there.
For the Rome Flex units, I think there's 14 total
Right.
parkings. 14 units, and so there's 50 in parcel A. There's, what's that, 49 in the rest of on-site. So this is just, when we've looked at other places, the number one thing that people say is, boy, I wish we had more parking. So we're just working together with the association, the Water Association, to say, hey, let's have a win-win here, and that they're agreeable to it. So my understanding is that parcel A is bonus. It's not attached to, Lot 7. We're just wanting to show it for completeness sake.
Val, do you know, so there's 13 units. Do you know, from an ERU perspective, it sounds like the way the water's ran, it's because it's just for that subdivision, that'll be one thing. But from a sewer perspective, how do you know what's coming in or what's not, or are there requirements on just 2 bathrooms per unit? What's the thoughts there?
Right, so they kind of have a base for both water and sewer. This is, okay, we're going to have one ERU for each one. And then when you make your proposal for your business, or when you get your building permit for each unit, then you'll be able to upsize it if you need to.
And they'll go in separately to the sewer, and then whatever they do with the water, and make sure that's done correctly.
Correct.
Separately.
So there's 14 ERUs for both water and sewer for the entire, and that's a bit more than what the Rome Flex units had, just so that we have enough to take care of business. If I had a crystal ball, it'd be cool, because we could know what was in each one of those units. That'd be really neat. Any other questions about that? Yeah, that would be helpful. Or the payback anyway, right? Thank you, appreciate your help.
Thank you.
To clarify for the parking, there's 46 spots on Lot 7 and there's 54 on Parcel A. Commercial highway allows for retail, it allows for restaurants, it allows for office space. I know general office, if I remember correctly, is one space for every 200 square feet of office. Retail, I believe, is 1 per 150, and then restaurants, I think, are 1 per 75. So it is highly dependent on what goes in there, whether those 46 spaces will be sufficient or not, as well as the size of each of the businesses. So with Parcel A, I think they're probably they probably have enough. If you do just a straight calculation of general office with 1 per 200, if they're all office space and there's no bathrooms, no storage spaces or anything like that, my calculation was they needed 120 spaces. But with that 120, obviously you're going to be pulling out all the, like I said, the bathrooms, the walkways, the kitchens, the storage spaces, things like that. So all of that could get you down under 100. But again, it's highly dependent what goes in there.
So, I'm just curious, George again. All these, are they storage spaces, or are they office spaces, or just a building so that they can be used for whatever purpose?
They're flex spaces, which means they're going to be built as a shell. And then whoever the tenant is will come in, submit a building permit for a tenant improvement, and they'll improve it according to what they want to do with it.
Okay.
That's typically how it works.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we move to approve Canyon View Commons Commercial Site Plan, application number 24.008, allowing for the proposed commercial development located approximately at 5788 West Canyon View Circle in Mountain Green, based on the findings and with the conditions listed in the staff report dated August 20th, 2024.
Could you add in approval of the conditional use permit for the parking to encroach in the front yard setback as well?
Noted.
Thank you.
Get a second.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in
Can
favor?
I propose an amendment?
Yes.
I would propose that we amend it to include the additional condition that I'm going to call it supplemental parking on Parcel A, to the extent it's required in order to meet the parking requirements for Lot 7. That the documentation of that arrangement as permanent parking available to Lot 7 be reviewed and approved by the county attorney.
I'll go along with that.
Okay.
But I
Still
didn't make the
stand.
motion. Jared has to agree.
Yeah, I'll add that to the motion, that's fine.
Okay.
Yep, and I do too.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Okay, item number 5, Josh, is a public hearing. We just talked about holding those after 6 o'clock, so we're going to skip on down a little bit here. We'll go to item 6, and we'll come back after 6 o'clock to item 5. Commissioner Wilson.
I'll turn that on now, so my pen clicking doesn't, I turn it off so I can click my pen. Over on the dugouts over at the city park, they've put wraps around those, hoping that it will help the kids. It's advertising, hoping the kids will not do drugs. It's about not doing drugs. So, but somebody's vandalized it and torn part of it off. I think you guys got pictures of that? No?
I
They've
didn't.
torn a corner of it off, and we got a bid, or I can't even think. Did I write it on there?
Rec department get the bid?
No. The little group of kids that came in here, and Kate. Yes, Morgan Cares. Morgan Cares, thank you. The Morgan Cares group wanted to refurbish that and have it put back, and so we thought, well, that's a great way to spend a few of our opioid dollars. It's not that much money. But they don't have the money to do that, so that was my proposal, is to be able to have them be able to put that back together and get it rewrapped and fixed.
It's the 685.48.
Correct.
I like that idea.
And so it is a use that we can use the opioid money for.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just want to make sure we can use that for it. Now, is the wrap going to be something that says something about drugs and all that kind of stuff, or?
It already does. We're just repairing what got vandalized.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, it'd be a lot more if we rewrapped both dugouts like they're wrapped now. So.
Okay, all right. Now, this is something we can act on, or was it just a discussion?
This was something we can act on. It was the other two bids for the sprinkler systems that we can just discuss. So.
Okay, I'll make the motion if I can. I move that we allow the Morgan Cares group to repair the vandalized area of the Riverside Park restroom wall for a total of $685.48. Should we make it any more than that?
To come out of opioid.
That was the bid, so we're good with that.
Coming out of the funds from the opioid dollars.
Second.
A motion, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Katie, that's 10-4150. 4150-675-000.
Okay, Commissioner Wilson, discussion on sprinkler proposals for Milton and Croydon.
So Steve from Renegade Sprinklers and I rode down to both the Milton Arena and up to the Croydon Park and looked at the different sprinkler issues there. The arena down in Milton, the problem we have there is it's getting used more and more and more, and people are starting to move closer and closer to it, and so the dust is becoming a problem down there. It's got a sprinkler. Well, what they've been doing is turning a big hose out on there, which just creates mud and stuff. So we had talked about using some ARPA funds to fix some of the sprinkler systems in our park areas. So I got a bid on both the Croydon Park and that. Brett has some concerns on the Croydon Park because it has an existing sprinkler system now, and I guess we allow trucks and trailers to pull out there and camp. So I haven't had a chance. He just got me the bid last night. I haven't had a chance to discuss that with Steve and make sure that what he's proposing would not get hurt by the trucks and trailers being pulled out there. Obviously, one of the bids is under 5, one of them's over 5, so some of it would need to go out to bid additionally too. So, which is always fun to run around with multiple people up and down.
Do we know, does Brett have in his budget on a yearly basis, operation and maintenance of parks for sprinklers or trees?
Yes,
or-
correct.
But probably not
Not that.
a large amount to
No.
replace sprinkler systems kind
No.
of thing.
So did we fix the,
In fact, that was his concern. He called me when he saw it on the agenda, thinking that might be coming out of his budget.
so did we get the cement pad or whatever for the basketball up there at Croydon?
No, we still
No.
need to work on that. We probably ought to do that before we do sprinklers.
Yeah.
But we can do that.
So, on this new sprinkling system, are you No, let's go to Croydon first. I understand that one because
So
it's
there's
basically
a lot of
repairing
issues
other
with the
one.
Croydon one. First of all, because there's no secondary water there. So right
there's
now
a
it's being
pump out of
flooded.
the ditch, and it-
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can't really do a sprinkler system out of the ditch. So the other sprinkler system was done on culinary water, which doesn't make the local people real happy that we're wasting water and grass out of a culinary system. So we've got some work to do on that to figure out how we could do something there.
So the Croydon one, if it's flood irrigated, what prevents us from getting a pump by having a delineation?
We have that set up now. We've had a lot of issues with the pump that's there in that system. Because it fills with silt and there's all kinds of problems that occur from that. So there's more that's going to have to go into that, probably design and figuring out. But
Okay, all right. I would just like to make sure that we work on that instead of flooding it, if possible, sprinkle it, if at all possible.
The horse arena, they would run around the perimeter up the poles and do some 60-foot that would intersect in the center. And I've talked to Brett about that, and he wants to be able to control that with his phone, so he can turn it on when it needs to be and turn it off when it needs to be without having people turning it on or trying to put it on a sprinkler, a timer that creates a mud hole if it rains or whatever. So that's how we had him bid that one. So as soon as I find out, it wasn't said on which one I assumed, and I shouldn't assume. So I've texted them and asked them to tell us which bid is which. So, and
So-
then we can all come back to you with it.
So
I'd
with-
like to see the design too.
I was gonna say the design would be good, but my question is that one on secondary or on culinary?
On secondary.
Okay, so they're both on culinary. I
A
mean, on
secondary.
secondary. Okay, because you were saying that one of them was on culinary.
Croydon's culinary.
Oh,
well, it
then
would be
we'll-
for a sprinkler system. I mean, because pumping from the ditch is a problem.
Yeah, only if.
Unless we can resolve that some way. That one was bid out of where they were their sprinkling before, and that is culinary. They're not using it. They've kind of just abandoned it.
Is that a surface right up in Croydon?
The county has a share in the ditch company. So, and we pay for that share every year. It's very inexpensive. So it's better than the culinary water from that perspective, but anybody who's ever tried to sprinkle out of a ditch or a body of water like that knows that it's not easy.
Holding tank of some sort.
Yeah, and you gotta have
Filters like
filtration
crazy.
system that's really, really good, otherwise
They don't
you
want
end
to
up-
go up there and unplug sprinklers all the time.
So do you normally have like 1 hour to water it, or is it a time limit up there that you have on it?
Yeah, the town park gets, I think it's about 8 hours.
8
I'd have to
hours
look.
for
I've got
one
the schedule.
chair? Whoa.
And it's not graded real well for even that.
No.
So they have all these pipes and stuff that they try and push it here and there, and
Okay. Yeah, I think we need to do some more work on it.
Town park, 6 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Okay.
so I'll continue to work on that. When I have more stuff, I'll send it to you and get it on the agenda.
So 6 hours.
And let's see, on our submittal, on our form here, it says Croton Park, only Croydon. Just check-
Yeah,
just check.
the Crouton Park.
Awesome. Okay, I think that's it on that agenda item, right?
Yes.
We've still got a few minutes, so let's go over to item number
8.
8.
Okay, number 8. Basically, it was just an announcement, and I hope that we accept it. For the co-op grant, marketing co-op grant for the from the Office of Tourism for the purpose of promoting our valley and promoting the tourism. It's a 1-to-1 match, but we already pay that in the marketing efforts within our county, so it's already within the budgets now. And so the 59,000 would be just an additional amount for us.
Who applied for this grant?
We did
Who's we?
the TTAB and the VistaWorks Destination IQ.
Works actually submit the application?
They actually submitted the application.
Do you know when they submitted that application?
It had to be in by June 30th or June 28th, and they submitted it and went through all the interview processes and all that to get the money. We lost out on it last year because of some, anyway, there's some problems. And so this year it would be very beneficial if we can. It's used for our visitor guide as part of it, and there's a lot of other things that's in the material as to what it's going to be used for.
So I think in the future, we need to make sure that before anyone submits for a grant on behalf of the county, that they have approval for the match for that grant. So they should have come to us in June or before and said, hey, we intend to apply for this. Is the county okay paying the grant, or excuse me, paying the match? And that's a commission decision that the commission needs to approve. I'm not opposed to this at all. It's just we need to make sure that that's happening in the right order.
We did this 2 years ago when we hired VistaWorks. We did this, and they, at that time, said that they were going to apply for these grants. And these grants, this is one of those grants. Now, you guys approved it then. Why can we not continue to approve it without coming before you at this time? Or at any time?
I think that's kind of like saying you approved the expenditure for, I don't know, widgets at one
Okay,
time.
So,
Does that mean it's approved in the future?
so that
If
means...
they came to us in the past with the grant opportunity, there's no reason they couldn't come to us every time and say, hey, here's the new opportunity, are you good with the match? And get that approval. Because this is a large expenditure, even if it's in the budget, even if we have $60,000, which we do, and that's great, they still need to come to the commission and get approval.
It actually reminds me of that one that we were discussed, I think it was Lydia maybe that discussed it, but it was this grant for up to $2 million. Well, 50% match, we're going, well, do we even have the money to put in $1 million
Correct.
right now? And
However-
so we needed to discuss it.
However, we allow every other department, we allow the ambulance, the EMS, the sheriffs, everybody to go out and get the grants before they come to us for discussion. Why? Why are we allowing them, but you're now picking on our department, my departments?
No, I disagree. If there's a match, they're coming to us and asking for that match.
And that department is our department, right? All of ours?
Before or after they submit
Before.
for the grant?
Because I have
I
not-
think from just an operational perspective, it's advisable to do that. It seems to make sense, and we'll just have to remind VistaWorks of that.
Okay.
Or anybody else. for
Or
that
anybody
matter.
else. If we have
Like you're
departments that
saying.
are applying for grants and not coming to us about the match, that's a problem.
I think we had the same issue in rec, and we ended up having to say, hey, look, we've got to approve these. We don't just have money. We've got to know that we can cover it.
Even if the money's in the budget, I think we still need to have that discussion.
Well, that, I guess that would be the one thing that we could talk about is if this is an annual grant opportunity, and as part of our budgeting process, we authorize a match from those funds for this annual grant, then I don't see a reason to have them come back a second time.
And I think that's fine too, if we know that amount.
Is it gonna be the
And
same
you-
amount every year?
No, it's not the same amount.
So we need to
So
know
we
the
approved
amount.
that. We approved it last year in our budgeting process. We approved for that up to $150,000 in the budget process. So now we only get 59. We had asked for 70. We get 59. So then why do we need to come before the commission again?
I don't think we did approve it in the budget process.
But
Okay.
if we did,
We
if
did.
we
You
did
did.
in the
You did.
future, if we said,
You
we
did.
don't know the exact amount, but we want to budget for a match for this Office of Tourism grant, and we're gonna budget $70,000, then it seems to me we would then just apply for the grant and not come back. But if we applied for a grant for $125,000, or guess, 200,000, so it takes us over the $70,000 amount we budgeted,
Then we need to talk.
then we would come back. Does that make sense?
But I also, I'm not, I guess, understanding why it's a problem for them to come to us and say, hey, we're applying for this grant, just FYI, this is the match. That seems pretty
Well,
simple to me. I don't
it's-
understand why that's an issue.
Just follow that.
If you can explain why it's an issue, I'd
Well,
love to
it's
hear
only
that.
an issue because of the fact that there are going to be times when we need to get those grants in. And we don't have a meeting, this one we knew about it, okay? We knew about it, we had approved it last year to go for that grant within our budget. So why do I need to come back and ask for every single expenditure or every single
So
grant
you're
that we
saying
apply
we
within this?
didn't have time to approve it?
No, we had plenty of time to approve it.
Okay, so what's
But
the issue?
the issue is it was approved within our budget last year. If it was approved within our budget last year, then why can't it continue through this, which is this,
If it was, that's fine. I don't recall it being
Okay.
approved to the budget.
well,
But
you
it's-
approved the budget.
Well, it sounds like it couldn't have been because we didn't know the amount then.
Unless,
did.
unless
It was-
we
Knew it was
anticipated.
$59,925?
We did not know it was $59,000.
Okay.
We didn't know it was gonna be 70. We were hoping it was gonna be more than that, but the amount we needed was only 70. We're happy with 59. What
Yes.
I'm saying is it was within the budget that we set up
What was
last
within
year.
the budget? That we set 150,000
I think he's
in
saying-
the tourism
I
budget?
think he
that
believes
budget
the
right there.
proposed match was already included in the budget.
That's correct.
I don't have a good enough memory to say that, but my view is that if as part of budgeting for the 2024 year, we included in the budget for this department matching funds for a proposed grant, that would be sufficient. And so if we're gonna do one of these for 2025, we should make sure that we include it in the budget. And if it wasn't included, then I agree, we should come back and have them approve it.
So my question to that is how do you, without setting it, and maybe we have a separate line item, I don't recall there being a separate line item. But if it's just in the
Marketing.
tourism and marketing, I don't know how you earmark that at the budgeting process and say this is a match for a grant. Because otherwise it's just
Because
money
we
in
don't
an
know.
account.
Yeah, it's just
You're-
money in an
No,
account.
I agree.
That's my concern is if it's money in an account, and we have that across all of our accounts, just because there's money there doesn't mean that we're automatically agreeing that that money is to be used as a match. I think that's a great use of this money. That's not the argument at all. My argument is just because there's money in an account doesn't mean that we've approved it to be used as a grant match. Maybe we've got that money in the account because we need it for other things, right?
I think
Now,
that
in this case, that's great because we can probably further this money by using it for the grant, but
I think that if you're specifically budgeting it for grant matches up to a certain amount, then that would,
I mean, but we've got to have a separate line item if we're going to
Right.
do that.
I don't
Otherwise,
think it can
can't
be
just
from the
part of
general-
the general
That's right.
budget.
and then the other thought is when the contract comes back, even though the grant amount may have been approved up to $100,000 or whatever that number is, the contract would still have to come back for approval because
Yeah.
the commission has to, which is why, this would come back even if the
We'd have
grant
to
was
do a budget
approved.
amendment too to revise that so that our match is the correct amount.
Yeah, because we would increase the overall budget by the
By the
portion that
match.
we're getting.
Right.
So what we're saying is that if we're going to do it in advance, we have to have a separate line item.
That
It's
says
not
this is our
sufficient to
budget.
just simply say, we have sufficient money in our budget to cover the match. That's not a separate approval.
Okay.
Just approving money being there, is, in my mind, is not approving a match.
But if you designate it for purposes of matching, then I think that would be okay. But for fire, rec, or whoever, they don't have authority to bind the commission. And so I think that's why, unless it's specifically outlined up to a certain amount, they'd have to come in before they ask. Because I've talked to Kate about this a little bit, and sometimes there's grants that we get the award and we may not have to take it if we're like, oh, we don't like that match, that's too big of a match, but it may interfere with getting grants in the future if we don't take it after we've applied. So I think best practices is to come and say, hey, this is a 1-for-1, or this is a 6% or a 10% or whatever it is. Come in, get the nod before you apply, so that we don't burn any bridges if we get awarded and then the commission says, or 3 commissioners don't say, yeah, let's go for it. So I think that's just more of a best practice.
Okay, so from now on, let's all work on that same thing, best practices, every single one of us,
Yeah, absolutely.
all the way around.
Nobody's arguing that, Blaine.
Okay.
Another question on this, there's general terms and conditions in the agreement. One of them is payment, and UOT will reimburse the grantee 75%. Remaining 25% of the grant amount will be paid upon completion of said project, submission of reports and invoices. And then under 10, it talks about compliance and reporting. I know when I've had grants with the state sometimes that, well, it happened as early as 2 months ago. I mean, you just have to have all the paperwork or they won't reimburse you. Who's managing this grant? Would it be
VistaWorks.
VistaWorks?
And of course, I'm overseeing it all.
So
Okay.
if this is signed tonight, then I will submit the request for the portion that they've allowed us. And then at the end, we'll submit our final report and the request for the remainder of the funds.
So that sounds like you are managing it.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I just
Okay.
oversee it. Trust
Okay,
me, I
perfect.
oversee it all.
We'll look for a motion on item number 8, co-op grant.
I'll make a motion. Get to the top of that. Oh, it's right there. Make a motion that we approve the co-op grant agreement between State of Utah, Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity, Utah Office Tourism, and Morgan County with a 50% match in the amount of $59,000, with the 50% being $59,925. And the matching dollars will come out of tourism.
Se-
We have a motion and a second. We'll give that second to Commissioner McConnell because I heard him first. It was kind of a tie
I actually think he
there.
completed the word. Commissioner
Apparently.
Wilson actually
You're
completed
just
the
a little-
word.
Okay, we'll give it to Commissioner Wilson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. All right, we will now go back to item number 5 for our public hearing.
Give Jeremy just a second to catch up. There we go. Awesome. Thank you.
This is application number 24.024. The applicant, Skylar Gardner, is in the audience. This is for the First Amendment to the North Side Creek Subdivision Development Agreement. I will say right off the bat that I don't have a perfect history of Northside Creek and everything that went on between 2007 and when they applied for this amendment. The applicant is applying for the either three single-family additional residences, which constitute the additional density that they were promised during their development agreement process, or they would like 6 townhomes as opposed to the 3 single-family residences. The Planning Commission heard this application at their last Planning Commission meeting. They recommended approval of the 3 additional single-family residential units, but felt that something else needed to be done if they wanted to increase it additionally beyond that for the 6 total townhomes. From what I can tell, the final plat was recorded prior to the recordation of the Northside Creek Development Agreement. That final plat, back in 2007 or 2008, contains errors in the calculation of the total density. From what I can tell, they were allowed 22 units with a bonus density of 3 for a total of 25 units. So that was allowed in the final plat. However, because of the errors on the final plat with the calculations of the bonus density and the total number of allowed units, those errors were transposed into the development agreement, which was adopted at a later date. So the size of the property is not 100 acres, it's 117, and the total density that they were allowed in that original final plat was 25 units, 22 plus 3 bonus. They currently have 22 units. They're seeking additional bonus density. I asked Mark Miller to go and inspect the infrastructure, which was the requirement for the bonus density, which was improving, and maybe the applicant can help me out here a little bit and can correct me if I'm wrong, but originally the improvements would have improved the roundabout, repaired that, as well as repaired the road itself. Mark indicated to me that sometime in the past 10 years, Garth Day, there was some agreement to take out the roundabout. I don't know specifics, but my understanding from Mark Miller, I sent you an email with his response. The improvements that were required were done, but said that if the county commission wanted to approve the additional 3 units to allow for the 6 townhomes, that the applicant, a requirement to overlay the road to bring it up to county standards would be his recommendation, since it seems that some areas are sinking and there's some issues with the current road. With that, staff is recommending approval of at least the 25 total units, and we'll leave it to the county commission to discuss with the applicant if you want to approve the townhomes. I think the inclusion of 3 additional townhomes as far as traffic is concerned will be negligible. 3 multifamily units, townhomes, I think it's like 6.5 to 7.5 additional trips per unit, and that's basically 3.5 one way, 3.5 another way, so for a total of 12 additional trips, something like that. It is 10 for single-family residential, but for the townhomes, those are considered multifamily as far as I know.
So Josh, do we have to determine or say whether they can have the townhomes or the single-family homes, or what's the criteria?
My understanding is that part of the original density bonus that they were given if they made those repairs was 3 additional single-family residential density units. According to Mark Miller, they made those repairs, and so in my estimation, they qualify for the 3 additional units.
So
Up
can
to
I
25.
just interject there?
Yeah.
If I remember, was this during my time? There were some other additional things. There was a fence thing. There was a walkway area thing,
Okay.
and repair of road. I'm sure he can address that.
Yep. That would be.
But those were, as I remember, that was what it was. So.
I didn't have Mark Miller look for a fence or a walkway. I wasn't aware of those additions, and I apologize for that.
And that's within the development agreement that I was reading through, that they did have to do that. They had to do those 3 items at least. But my question also along those same lines is, if we allow the townhomes, then that means they get a total density of 26, not,
No, it'd be 28 at that point.
it'd be 28. So that means we're increasing.
So your
So
development
that's right.
agreement, the development agreement section allows you to, I don't like the word negotiate, but to work with the applicant on things that might allow for the additional density. And that's kind of what the Planning Commission's recommendation was for. They agreed with the 25, and their recommendation of approval was for that, but they felt that there needed to be something more to reach the allowance for an additional 3 density.
So I gotta make sure I understand this correctly, but if we're asking for additional free density, my concern when I heard it is that we have a development or a road come in. Up to a year later, we can inspect it if anything fails or anything, and then the county accepts it and uses it for, is this a public road? I wanna make sure it's a public road.
It is
Um,
now.
Canyon Road is
So
Thank
it's
you.
been a public road for You know, okay, decades, and then we're maintaining it, we're operating it, heck, we're even putting restrictions or no restrictions anyways, it's our road. So then decades down the road, the same developer, happenstance, it could have been a different one actually, but it happens to be the same one, comes in and says, hey, we're making some adjustments, and our engineer says, hey, can you actually fix this road at the same time? Is that part of, because we're looking at giving them a higher density, or asking them to repair the road? Is that?
That would be Mark Miller's recommendation, is that they overlay it to bring it up to county standards.
I get that,
As part
but
of the three
but the
additional.
way we're making sense of that is we're saying, hey, we'll give you more density if you can fix this road.
That would be the decision, the
Okay.
commission. If you wanted to increase the density, then one option would be to ask them to do that.
Well, I didn't want to increase it. I just want to make sure I understand it. If they are not increasing density at all, and then they're still saying, hey, well, county's saying, hey, can you fix this road we've owned? Yeah, I just want to make sure.
If they just went for the 25 single-family residential dwelling units, I think they've made the improvements according to Mark Miller's inspection. Skylar can talk about the wall and the walkway, because I don't know about that specifics. But if you want to approve 3 additional density on top of that, then that would be the discussion. Did you want to talk to?
Yeah, let's have Skylar come up and.
Help him use his one.
Thank you. I'm glad that I get a chance to, Skylar Gardner for Gardner Development. In my attempt to explain this to the Planning Commission, I didn't do a great job. I was caught off guard a little bit. But I have prepared just a little summary here that I'm hoping that I can just hand out to you guys, and we can just go through it one by one. So really briefly, in this amendment, in recital F, the part that I didn't do a good job of is it says that we exceeded the requirements for the previously approved plans for Cottonwood Canyon Road. And then we also completely replaced the airport fencing. So if you look at this little spreadsheet that I gave you here, in the development agreement, we were required to repair 3,700 square feet of asphalt, 700 lineal feet of fence, and then we were required to install a 6-foot trail for 29,700 lineal feet. The total cost of that was going to be $180,000. When we went out there to review the site with Mark Miller and Brett Heiner, we determined that in many sections the fence was actually too close to the road to accommodate a full 6-foot trail adjacent to the roadway. So in working with them, we agreed to actually completely rotomill all of Cottonwood Canyon Road, which was a public roadway. It starts at Willow Creek Road and goes up to the subdivision boundary for 171,000 square feet. And I think that might be where Mark is maybe, his memory is conflating the two items a little bit. Rotomilling the road was not one of the original requirements of the development agreement. And so that's where we went above and beyond and spent $546,000 rotomilling the road. When we put the road back, we put the trail as an extension of the roadway, and then we painted a pedestrian line to identify that as the 6-foot trail. So that runs from Willow Creek to the subdivision boundary, right along the frontage of Browning Arms, and it might be one of the most used trails in the entire county because they walk on it every single afternoon.
So Skylar,
Yeah.
why did you, when was this done? A year ago, 2 years ago, 3?
This was done in the summer of 2020. 2021, I believe,
So
or
in-
2022.
So in 2021, you made an extra 366,000, according to how you understand it,
expense.
dollars worth of improvements.
Mhm.
But you said that there was an agreement in 2021. Was that just a verbal? And did you guys say, yeah, of course we'll spend $360,000 with no, I mean,
It
how
was
did
just
that-
a mutual cooperation with Mark and Brad.
It
there
doesn't sound
wa-
like the
didn't come
county
back to the-
cooperated at all.
We didn't come back to the council. Well,
It
I
sounds like you
actually
guys
think
paid
that
for it.
what Mark is remembering is he's remembering the entire road being roto-milled, and that being one of our requirements. But that wasn't one of our requirements, the full replacement of Cottonwood Canyon.
So why would you guys do it? I wouldn't have. That's a lot of money for no agreement.
It is the major roadway that leads to Browning and the airport and up to our subdivision, and it was failing and in terrible repair. So, yeah, I guess we probably should have come back to the council for a mutual agreement before we did it. But we had the crews lined up to do the roadway and instead just moved them over and rototilled the whole thing and put it all back probably within 30, 40 days. So, I mean, I guess I could go back to Mark and meet with him and maybe Brett Heiner and refresh everybody's memories, because it has been a couple of years. But that is what we did. And so, just to complete down here at the bottom, so we ended up doing, 3 times the amount of fence, 3 times the amount of asphalt replacement, and which would be approximately 3 times the cost.
Didn't
But
just repair the fence, they
They replaced
replaced it, and they
We
worked with
completely-
the airport on the design of the fence.
yeah,
Just for fun. I don't mean to be rude. It's just, that's a lot of.
If I remember right, it was supposed to be a deer.
Yes. That's right.
and
Right.
it actually does a very good job of
It does.
keeping the deer.
At least from that direction. On this other side, the eastern side, there's no
Yeah.
fence.
But the
Because there's not an equivalent fence on the east side of the airport, there's actually quite a few deer that end up on the airport and kind of become entrapped. So the county should look to maybe a fence on the east side, but that's beside the point. So yes, we did end up doing 3 times the amount of work, and we are requesting an additional 3 units, which would be 2 times what we had agreed to in the development agreement. I do acknowledge that. We only have a development agreement that allows us to bonus up 3. We're asking to bonus up 6. But the reason why we did it was because we did additional work at the time. So,
Skylar, where will those bonus units go? Are they part of like parcel K?
yes, Parcel K.
Is that where
yes,
they go?
it was anticipated that Parcel K was kind of left as a blank space
Okay.
on that private roadway. So in the future, we would put the 3 units there. There was some questions at the Planning Commission what the townhomes would look like, and I actually put the renderings. I call them twin homes because they do look like a large single-family home, but they are technically a duplex. But we're not doing some standard, I guess, row-looking townhomes. We would not be doing that. We would be doing something that is, equal to what we expect to be in the subdivision as well. The reason why we've moved towards these townhomes is just because we've had some people express interest in purchasing, but they'd like something that's a little more low maintenance, that doesn't have the yard, or they have a yard in common. So we had the idea of, instead of 3 lots on Parcel K, we do 3 lots but have duplexes on each one of the lots. And they would be decent sized lots. I think they're 3/4 of an acre to 1 acre in size. Once that 2.7-ish or 2.4 acres of Parcel K gets divided.
It's almost too bad we can't have more of our townhomes in this county look like that. Be nice.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still stuck on you paid that much extra money. I'm kind of thinking back, I'm trying to think about what we discussed too, because it was when we first got on. But I thought, it sounded like there was discussions about it, but that it was not included in the development agreement. 'Cause
Yeah, that is correct. In 2021, when we recorded the development agreement to memorialize the 22 lots and a potential 3 bonus density, it did not say 3 or 6. It just said 3. That is correct. The townhome concept is a new concept that we developed after working in cooperation with Brett and Mark. So, I hate to keep using their name over and over because they're not here, but I think if we refreshed Mark's memory just a little bit, that the roto mill was not part of the original requirements. So that's why we're asking for more.
I would think we would have a recording of our meeting, that would,
Probably.
so we would know that, so. That we could
That it
share
wasn't
with,
part of it?
that we could share with Mark, yeah.
So.
Well, the development agreement itself does not mention anything about the full, the roto mill full replacement of Cottonwood Canyon
Yeah,
Road.
the
It only
agreement
has the
itself
fence,
is-
the trail, and asphalt patches. And each one of the patches actually has an aerial photo with a outline of the 10 by 6 or 8 by 8 or whatever the repair sizes were that equaled that 3,708 square feet. So the development agreement is really clear as to what was required for the 3 units. That's,
And those patches were identified with Mark Miller.
yes. But I think when he's reminded to go look at it, he's looking at the entirety of the road, because we ended up doing everything all at once. So.
Do you know whether he looked at it before or after you did the repairs 2 or 3 weeks ago? Because there were, you mentioned a couple of places that were sinking that I know the county did a little bit of patchwork, and then these guys came back in, cut out the whole area, and redid those areas.
He's been out twice. He went out once before the planning commission, and then he went out again earlier today.
Yes, yes.
So Brett has seen them. I went with Brett today on that, and he looked at them all, and he said there was one other area that they had to do. But I don't know exactly where it was at. So,
If it occurs in the old Cottonwood Canyon Road area, then
right.
as Chair Anderson has mentioned, that was kind of us going above and beyond and volunteering, but if we're not going to receive bonus density, I don't know, would it be upon us to go out and repair the county road? Or do a complete overlay? I don't think that it would.
Well, and as I recall, the whole reason that any of the road came into question here was due to the fact that you removed a tremendous amount of material, and there was concern with the large trucks removing material from your pond area, right?
Yes,
I think that was
true.
kind of the genesis of why there was discussion on the road, and so there was the bonus discussion that was
For
kind of,
the asphalt patches. Yes.
Correct,
The
yeah.
original repairs, yeah. Yeah, when we constructed the subdivision, there were quite a few large trucks that departed, and those asphalt patches, the 3708, were as a result of those.
I know the paint is almost gone on those, on the trail. Which I can't ask you to go and take care of it because it's our responsibility now. But my question is, back on, you have, the amendment effectively includes the amenities constructed by the developer and the required indemnification for Morgan County. So what are you indemnifying with Morgan County?
Yes, okay.
It's a waiver of liability for Morgan County. That's one of them, but other than that, I
Okay,
didn't see
yeah,
anything
so in
else.
2.2,
2.2.
there are part of the subdivision in parcel L, I believe it is. There are some private lakes and recreational facilities. And those recreational facilities include some like lights and tow lines, And there was some, when we submitted them for building permit, there was some question as to the liability related to those. We also submitted them to the state of Utah for review. And we ended up getting the building permits, but that section 2.2 is just to absolve the county from any claims of liability related to those recreational facilities.
Which was something requested by the Planning and Building Department and the county attorney.
So another little bit of a tangent, but on, it was discussed that, see, the plat says you have 117 acres, the plat that was signed in 2008, and then I thought you said, Josh, in your explanation that the development agreement had actually said 100. Is that what you said?
That's correct. So the development agreement that was adopted just calls it 100 acres. And the way it's phrased in the development agreement is that they were allowed 22 total single-family units, including bonus density. And so the way it's worded in the development agreement does not follow what was actually approved in the final plat back in 2007, 2008.
And when you say include bonus density, is this now a administrative decision or is it still legislative? How does that work?
It's a legislative decision because it's a development agreement which would modify the entitlements.
So back on that, says the first, oh, this is the amendment. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, in the original development agreement, which was adopted and signed, it says 22 single-family residential units, including bonus density. So the way it's phrased, they took the error from the 2008 final plat and they pushed it forward into the development agreement. So the final plat actually talks about 22 units and then a bonus density of 3, which for a total of 25. But the math between those 3 lines is wrong. So it should have been 25 units, including bonus density. That's what the development agreement should have read if it was following the original final plat.
So when you say the original final plat, the one that we see right now? Is that the original
No,
final
that is
plat?
the amendment.
Oh, that's the amendment.
Yep.
So I'm just recalling back to when we made that decision. You were coming in at that time asking us to give you the extra density at that time, and I think we're going to have to review that meeting because at that time it seemed like there was 21 and they asked for 1 additional at that time because of it being a PRUD. So I think we ought to be looking at what was happened then. Maybe we don't need to. I don't know.
Let me see if I can bring up that original plat.
A couple of pieces, it looks like.
That's it, right? So this plat shows 22 lots.
Jeremy, can you zoom into the lower right quarter?
Density
Density
calculation.
calculations.
For 5.54 acres.
So if you read that, it says, oh, go back
Just
down.
Down a little bit.
Yeah, go down. It was perfect. Just yeah, scroll down. Keep going. A little bit more. Keep going. Yeah, right there. So it talks about the base density being 23.5 dwelling units per acre. And then it talks about a total bonus density of 2.35, which by my calculation would be 25.85 dwelling units per acre. But then somehow total units is only 22. So there was a math error that was carried forward. So that 22 was carried forward into the final development agreement and adopted. But from the previous two lines, my understanding is there should have been 25.
With bonus density.
Right. So the total number of dwelling units that they were allowed was 23.5, plus a bonus density of 2.35, which equates to 25.85.
Almost 26.
Yeah. So I don't know how the 22 got in there, because that doesn't compute. But that 22 was then carried forward into the development agreement itself.
That kind of math makes perfect sense to me, Morgan.
You tell me this is an extra. So did I.
That's what I've been able to find. As far as the meetings that were held previously, I don't know what was discussed in those meetings.
So,
Well, it looks to me like we should honor what the original density is what I would think.
before we do that, though, I have a question on, you've got 1 unit per 5.34 acres. So, was this zoned an RR5 at the time, or what?
No, it was zoned PRUD, because that's what modifies your entitlements. And the old PRUD ordinance allowed for some negotiations, so. That's correct.
So, is there a reason why we would not want to allow them to increase this density?
No, I think the county is beholden to at least allow them to 25, because that's what was allowed by their final plat, even though it's not reflected in the development agreement. So the development agreement definitely needs to be amended to reflect what was previously approved, for sure. But the question here is, the applicant wants 6 townhomes as opposed to just a 3 single family.
And that goes
Correct.
to 28,
So
which is
you-
2 more than they're allowed.
3 more. 3 more. So the commission
number
needs
he
to decide if what they've done out there actually warrants the 3 additional density, 3 additional dwelling units. The applicant is making the case that they went above and beyond the infrastructure requirements that were required of them for the 3 density units. But the county engineer went out there recently and has said that there is some sinking, but the improvements were done. So I think the county's beholden to at least allow them the 3 single-family dwelling units, but it's up to you to decide if what they've done warrants 3 additional, or if you'd like them to do a little bit more. Also, this is a public hearing item.
So, question, if I may. So, on here you're saying that you roto-milled the road, but yet in your agreement, it said you were going to, you just were gonna put over a 3-inch overlay, is that correct?
No, the original agreement said they would patch certain sections of the road and install a road adjacent, or a separate trail, right? But because there wasn't room for a separate trail, the decision was, let's make a road adjacent trail connected to the road. And in order to do that, they did the entire road instead of just patching sections.
Okay.
Did I capture that okay?
You did, thank you.
So I actually have a question for you, Skylar. Let's say if the vote, if this doesn't pass, you still have a $366,000 bill from 2021. I mean, what do you? I guess
About 2 years ago.
I guess the concern I have, maybe not from your end as much, but at the same time, it appears that we potentially could have had $366,000 worth of repairs that we needed to do in 2020. It appears anyways.
You mean if the county would have done the roto
Well,
mill?
if the
And
county
so they
needed-
roto milled it and did a 3-inch overlay.
That's
correct?
right.
If the county did that work, because the road was failing at that time, and if these guys weren't doing any kind of development, just said, hey, it's been your road for a while, then it would have cost us potentially approximately this much to repair it, to fix it.
Well, to be fair, that includes the cost of the trail, and we wouldn't have been doing the cost of the trail if we were just dealing with the road.
That was before my time.
Yeah, if it
But
was,
nonetheless, it's a large expense that they put.
Skylar, if you would have had to repair the road and put a separate trail, would it have been more expensive to do a separate trail? That whole, than just add it to the, road, or?
no, it wouldn't have been more expensive. If we were just going to do just the 6-foot trail, that's the $141,000 in the green section right there. And we ended up doing 306. So if you were to, that train of thought, if you were to just pull the trail out, 306 minus 141, that's approximately what the rotomill and overlay would have been by itself. But there were sections of the airport fence that were so close to the road, even the original road before it was rotomill, that you couldn't accommodate a 6-foot trail.
As I recall,
In
there
that
was
sec-
discussion
on
about
that-
putting it on the opposite side of the road, but there was an issue with Browning as well, right?
Yeah, there was the idea to put it on the other side of the road where there's actually quite a bit of right-of-way, but Browning did not want it to interfere with the entryway to their headquarters there. So
Is this the amount in 2021 that you paid?
yes, these are actuals. Yeah, the blue are actuals from
So
invoices.
2024 would be
Yeah.
including
I-
inflation.
At the time, it was just and even subsequent, whenever there's a pothole that appears along this roadway, prior to us rotomilling it, it was just simply a cold patch. I don't think the county had the ability to go in and do major repairs. And even after we did the rotomill, there was a couple of soft spots. County threw soft spots, cold patch into it. And then we actually removed the cold patch and actually cut it out, recompacted it, and then did a hot patch on it. So we have also repaired it, which actually, those numbers are not on this. But in the end, if you are not comfortable with the additional bonus of 3 to take us to a total of 28, based on what I've shown you and the additional expenses that we had, we are comfortable with this being passed with an increase to 25, just falling back on the original language of the development agreement, which I guess we need to clean up just a touch, but we would like an approval for 25 if you're not comfortable with the 28.
The only thing I see is in your original, it says 23.5 and 2.35. You add those up and it's 26. Why are you only asking for 25?
It's 20, correct. It's almost 26. It's
That's almost 26,
25.85.
okay.
But
I was really off.
0.85 unit.
I was taught not by Max
That-
Prager.
another answer to that is that's 2008, and in 2021 we did a development agreement amendment, or a development agreement, I guess. Sorry,
So
where we memorialized it at 22 and asked for a bonus of 3. So we would rely on that. The language was a little bit, maybe not perfect, but that is what was intended.
So may I ask Josh a question?
Yeah, and then I think we should go into the public hearing just to,
I'm probably gonna forget my questions.
go ahead.
I forgot it.
If it's
Wow.
if it's
You
important, it'll
interrupted
come
him,
back.
Chair. That made him forget.
You do good
You'll
at
forget
that,
in a
Mike.
minute. You'll forget. You'll
Yeah,
remember
I
in a
will.
minute.
Yep.
You're
If
gonna
there's no
have
other,
to- You're gonna have to wait.
Okay.
okay. I'd say let's go into our public hearing and then we can come back and we'll have more questions, I'm sure.
Okay.
there a motion to move into public hearing?
Yes.
So you can declare,
Motion.
Well, we
We
didn't
haven't
approve
changed
it.
that yet.
We didn't pass it.
but that is an amendment of the previously adopted. And so it has existed, we just haven't followed it because I don't think I was aware that it had existed. So that one goes back even before, goes back to the prior council.
So is it written that way now?
Mhm.
That we can just say we're
Yeah,
going to move
you
into
can
public
declare
hearing?
it.
Okay. I'm
And
going to
declare it
that
in
we
and
are
declare it out.
now in public hearing regarding item number 5, the Northside Creek Subdivision Development Agreement, Amendment 1. I could see Tina back there was ready to say something.
I was expecting Lilia.
Tina Kelly, Mountain Green. I don't really have a dog in this fight. I don't live over there, but I was on the council, and this was all going on. First, in your Planning Commission summary on page 61, it says there were no public comments for this item on that agenda. That is incorrect. I spoke in that public hearing, and I made a few comments. And I've asked for I don't know why you don't get their draft minutes when you're seeing these agenda items, but I really think you should get their minutes or their draft minutes so that you see what their motions are and what those public comments are during the public hearings, because I did make a few. First of all, this was a PRUD. I have to look at my notes because you guys keep going back and forth. The underlying zone for that PRUD is an RR5. So it was RR5 and it remains RR5 as the underlying zone under the PRUD. All PRUDs kept their underlying zone. The applicant negotiated additional density under the PRUD ordinance by offering up amenities that were negotiated at the time. There was actually in the ordinance things that you could do that got you additional density. That was taken out because it was considered subjective, but that's how they got the density that was negotiated at the time, was through those negotiations. Those things were trails, parks, and open space. And the one thing that I do recall was that townhomes were never discussed at the time of the original application. It was always single-family homes that would reflect the zoning, the underlying zoning of the area and what would become the surrounding. So townhomes were never discussed. And I did listen to Skylar's arguments about the road and the trail and all of that. And I've talked to Debbie and to Jeremy about the plats and the changes. But I think that there was something that was added to your town center wording that allows you to negotiate more density now. But it wasn't allowed at the time. They negotiated all of that density up front. So I'm okay with the 25. I wasn't okay with the townhomes because that wasn't what was discussed at the time or even anticipated at all at the time. Thank you.
Yeah, Alan, Mountain Green. I would suggest going back to those hearings.
Can you speak right into it?
I was taller.
But you need to still speak into it. not off
I was in those meetings, and those roads were terrible. There was that roundabout was so ripped up with piles of cement just laying there. So I think we've had a problem down in the Cottonwoods with the roads in that Gardner first did. So what they were doing was repairing their own poor work. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, seeing no additional public comment, I'll declare the public hearing closed and we'll reconvene the public meeting.
Well, I'll just say with respect to the roundabout was originally installed as part of the Cottonwood development or under the Northside Creek. The county then made a determination to tear it out. And so that area was really rough. But so maybe it's a combination of poor work by the contractor and the tearing out, but the roundabout was in really rough condition. That's part of what was repaired as part of this process.
Now, the road, though, Cottonwood Canyon Road, has always been a county road, I mean, before both of these developments.
But there is a portion of it that was extended by this
Okay.
and widened.
Okay.
And then there was a long section of it that wasn't.
Yeah, and back to my earlier comment, I think when we have roads that are built, we should be having our county engineer or even a third-party construction management group watching it being built, verifying that it's being built correctly. I don't think any contractor can say, I'm going to build something and I'll guarantee it'll be good for 20 years or 30 years. That still doesn't mean that if it fails in 6 months or a year that it was shoddy work. I'm not saying that. I guess the concern I have also in general is if there's roads going in and we're watching them be built and we say, yep, they were built to code and to standard, and we accept them after a year, that's what that literally means, that you're accepting that road and saying we're taking the responsibility now. I mean, it's a hard pill to swallow. I haven't been in a home where I haven't had issues and haven't thought in my head, that dang plumber, that dang electrician, they didn't do their job right. Well, I bought it and I accepted it. And I guess the thought I have in the career I'm in is maybe we put a little bit more effort and time into that, seeing that road be built and whatever's being done from that perspective. But that's just my thoughts from that perspective. So.
Don't we require core samples and stuff?
I'm not sure about the core samples. I do know that the county engineer is out there inspecting. They do a water truck roll. They make sure it appears that the compaction is correct. I can ask Mark Miller if they take core samples to make sure that things are done that way. But I do know that when the sub base goes in, they inspect it. They inspect the base. They do a proof roll, and then they allow the overlay, and then they do a final inspection. My discussion with Mark Miller is that the failures typically don't occur within the first year. It is rare that those failures occur, but because of state statute, we can't push it off past a year.
So, this is not the original question. So, as far as the roads then, back to what you're saying and you're saying now, so the construction doesn't really begin until sometime longer than a year, and those big heavy trucks go across the road, and if certain things aren't done, you're going to have potholes, right? So why should we have to pay for that? I'm not suggesting anything of wrongdoing. I'm just asking, what do we do
So
if we've accepted a road and now all the heavy equipment's coming across it with it? I know that roads get destroyed with construction, period.
Yep. Did you want to answer?
Just to add real quick, and then maybe you can fill in whatever
Okay.
holes I leave. But typically when a subdivision comes in, they do a geotechnical report. They know and they recognize, and it says in the report, for the weight of the construction vehicles also. Then they give a section and say this is the section you're required to build. So that I'm aware of, I don't think they exclude weights of concrete trucks, trusses, cranes, whatever you want to say. They have to include that in their analysis, but that doesn't mean it's going to be done perfectly either.
I believe
just
it also
curious.
includes compaction requirements, the level of moisture that needs to be in the soil at the time of compaction in order to get to that 95% compaction. I think it's called relative compaction, but
Density in the asphalt.
right, and that geotech will set the width of the asphalt that should be overlaid on top, and it's typically approximately 3 inches. Rarely have I seen it less than that, sometimes more, but that's all in the geotech report. It needs to be followed, but even for an engineer to go out and inspect the sub-base and the base, they're not seeing everything. They don't have the time to do that.
Okay. All right. Just curious.
Skylar, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, he wanted to talk too.
I'm just wondering, these twin homes, townhomes, twin homes,
Yes.
so they have a 0 unit line or lot line, and then what, do you know what the square footage of these is?
I don't off the top of my head. Could probably look it up.
Along with his question, maybe you can be thinking of this while you're looking for it, is I just wondered why you didn't want to just do 2 of them instead of 3 of the townhome
To make it
structures.
close to the density.
And then
So-
I've got, excuse me.
So like 2 buildings with 3 units, is that what you're?
Yeah, so it's not, when you're asking for the 3 up to 25, it's not single lots. It's actually, all 3 lots would include twin homes is your suggestion, so it'd be like 6 residents? Is that how you'd say it? I don't know how you'd, is that
6
what you're-
units.
6 units, okay.
It would probably be platted where parcel K converts to lot 1, and then within lot 1, there's 6 units, is probably the way that we would do it.
I guess that's another point, though, because we're talking about,
That is a condominium,
the
true.
development talks about lots, right? Not units? Or does it say units?
It says units on the plat.
I'm just curious, because there's clearly a difference between units versus lots.
Because if they did 6, they would do a condominium plat, and they would be considered units. So it'd be a condominium plat within Lot K, creating
6 units.
I believe the development agreement says 22 dwelling units.
Okay.
It doesn't talk about lots, but I'd have to pull it just to double check.
So it's 22 plus 3.
The current existing development agreement never mentions 3 at all. It says 22 dwelling units, including bonus density. So that error that I showed earlier was carried forward.
Yeah, it was intended to be
25. Yeah, but I can't find in the current development agreement anywhere where it mentions 3. Just the 22. So if anything, that needs to be updated to reflect the plat.
So Skylar, when you're saying 3, that you would be okay with 3, so going from 22 to 25, that is not 3 dwelling units. Because the dwelling units, the twin homes
you
are
know, not 3 structures, no, just 3 individual residences, whether that's, I guess, easiest 3 additional lots would be the easiest way to, yeah. The only, just as you were having the discussion about the road, sorry to change the subject, but I just wanted to make it clear that when we rototilled the road, we did that with a right-of-way permit that was issued by Lansan Mark Miller. And it's actually listed in the development agreement 5.2. On February 11th, that right-of-way permit was issued. And Mark was there visually inspecting. I did the proof roll with him. And he did actually, we did a slope analysis on the road as well before we put back the overlay on top of Cottonwood Canyon Road. Sorry. Just as you were having that discussion about inspections and what happens, we didn't just do it, we didn't just meet with Mark and Brett and say, okay, we're going to go redo this. They were there, both of them were actually there visiting the site daily, and it was in September of 2021 when we repaved it. So.
Okay. Another question, but this one is the original question for Josh, because I remember it and I wrote it down this time. Okay. In your planning commission meeting, in there they said that they approved it 5-0. They approved this, what we're trying to do, an increase in density. However, my question is did they approve either or?
No.
Or were they I mean, in that it says that it was.
They wanted to make sure that their recommendation of approval was understood, that it was only for the 3 additional single-family dwelling units, to take it up to 25, and that if the developer would propose some additional amenities or could prove to the commission that they had gone above and beyond, that they might be able to qualify for the addition, the 6 townhomes as opposed to the 3. But their recommendation was strictly for the 3.
And why would the developer want to put in these twin homes versus single homes, single family? I mean money.
You're doubling it,
Right.
and they're townhomes. And these look like fairly large. So, money?
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
Product diversity.
at the
right?
end of the
Yeah.
day, it comes down to,
Yeah. I'm just wondering. Yeah, and I can see there's an interest in that kind of a product,
yeah,
because there's,
feel
I mean, there's a huge desire for that kind of a thing where they don't have to take care of yards, and where these are nice looking, and not straight up and down square boxes. I mean, yeah, we're adding additional 3 homes. I mean, 3 family residences. That's right. Yeah, you are. Right, and it reduces the density, so.
well, let's be clear about that. So, it's gonna be 6 residences, right? And unless one of the units in each of those is gonna be rented out, they either have to be condominiumized or they have to be on their own lot in order to sell them as 6 individual residential units. So it's not just, it's 3 structures, but those 3 structures, if they want to sell all 6 units to different people and not sell 3 structures to 3 different people, then they're going to have to condominiumize it, or each one is going to have to be on a separate lot. So to be clear, there are 6 residential units in the 3 townhomes.
So to me, this boils down to, it sounds like there has been an agreement to provide the additional 3 to 25, right? That was already part of it. If they complied with those few things, and they did those things, right? So to me, there's no question on that. The 25 should be a done deal, right? I guess the only question at this point then is, have they gone above and beyond, and do we feel like that justifies additional density or not? And I'll give my opinion on that, and then I think we can each maybe opine on that. Is that okay?
That's fine.
And if you have additional questions, we can ask them too, but I'm just trying to move this along because I clearly believe that they did go above and beyond. I wish they had come to us and said, hey, we think we should go above and beyond. Would you allow that extra density at that point? But I also understand that time frames are what they are, and the decision on the trail and such doesn't always line up with that. I guess my only concern with saying, okay, let's give them additional density because of the stuff that they did above and beyond, is that I don't want future developers to come to us and say, hey, we did this, now you owe us, kind of a thing. And I don't get me wrong, that I don't believe that's what Gardner Development is doing here in any way, shape, or form. That's my only concern, is setting a precedence that we will allow that in the future. And I'll sit back and let each of you give your thoughts.
I can agree with the thought on that. My first thought is if they had an agreement, why not stick to the agreement? Because otherwise, you're going to have every single person that has a development agreement come back in and ask for more. That was my question. Even though I do like the concepts of those townhomes or duplexes.
Yeah.
If they'd stuck to the original agreement, then the fence would not have been moved and been reconstructed. The roadway itself would not have been rotomilled and redone.
Yeah,
It would have been
I think the
patched.
county benefited
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to point out.
by
that.
their decision.
And I agree with that, and I appreciate it too.
Other thoughts?
I'll reassert my conflict of interest, make sure you guys are fully aware that I have it. got any questions about that. So my view, I think you've set it up correctly. This, I believe they did go above and beyond. I think there were some informal discussions with members of the commission at the time, letting them know that they were going to be doing these additional changes. And I think they were responding to both what Brett Heiner and Mark Miller were seeing with respect to the road. I think they were responding to the airport and what they were looking at with respect to the fence. And they decided that it was worth the risk of going forward and putting in that extra investment and coming back and asking for the additional density. And they've already indicated that they're comfortable with the 25, but would appreciate the 28. And if you look, I mean, it's a significant additional investment. I'm not sure what will pencil more and give rise to the greatest amount of profit for them. The 3 units likely will. I mean, it just depends on what buyers are looking for. I know that there's a number of people in Wasatch Peaks who buy lots. I have a client now who just bought one, and he's now looking for a place to live over the design and construction period, and he wants to buy something. He doesn't want to do VRBOs when he comes. And you know, if there was a product like this that he didn't have to take care of and arrange for somebody to mow the lawn and do that sort of thing, he would jump on it, because I know that's the kind of product he's looking for. And so I think there's a market-driven element of that, where they think they can respond to that market. And that also suggests that they will make money. Nobody who does this does it to lose money. They all do it to make money. And, you know, communities don't develop without developers. And the other thing that we haven't discussed was the signage on the airport's fences, which they did originally. Many of those got vandalized, and they've repaired those as well, and replaced those as well. So.
Can I ask one more question? Because Josh, you threw a curveball at me. So if 3 lots were to have 2 units on them, you're saying that only one owner would have to own those 2 units?
If you have one lot and there's 2 units on that one lot and they're not condominiumized at all, then it's considered a primary and an accessory dwelling. You can't sell something that doesn't have its own either condominium space or lot.
And it would have to be rezoned to do condominium space? Is that what you're...
No, the townhomes, so it's called a condominium just because of how the plat works. So condominium plat, you have an area of common space, and then each individual unit within is defined in
Sure,
3D.
you're buying the air, kind of.
Condominium is kind of paint to paint, and townhomes are wall to wall. And so in this case, they would own wall to wall, but it would be defined on the plat itself. And so each of the units would have a defined space that is defined and platted. The whole rest of the single lot would be common open space, and typically maintained by an HOA or a management company related to the condominium plat. But if you wanted to sell the individual units, they either have to be condominiumized or each one has to have their own lot.
So what's the process for condominiumizing it?
It's the same subdivision. So since this is part of an existing subdivision, they would go through a plat amendment to plat out parcel K according to the development agreement approval.
I have one more question for you. Sorry. Is that all right if I ask?
Yeah.
With the total acreage within this, if they got a total of 28, would they still meet the RR5 1 unit? Would they exceed that?
Off
Did
the
you
top
say
of my
it was
head,
117 acres?
It's 23.4 if it was 117 divided by 5.
thank you.
So they are dependent upon bonus density.
Yeah.
Josh, you brought up a good point, though. Under our current code, we do allow accessory dwelling units.
That's
So,
true.
just one train of thought that could go down is, what's the difference between them? Let's say we do the 3 additional lots and the owners come in and build their homes on it and then build accessory dwelling units behind them, versus 6 condominiums. I mean, in terms of potential numbers of people, potential dwelling units, you'd be exactly the same, right? I mean, I guess you can't sell them separately, but otherwise, I don't know, just, I guess, playing devil's advocate in terms of thinking about the
yeah.
density.
In the grand scheme of things, if you included the 3 dwelling units, technically they could opt for internal accessory dwelling units or detached accessory dwelling units. So,
Okay. I'm just seeing one more thing in parcel K, and I don't know if we can bring that up or not, but it says there's only 3 point. It's really unclear, unless that's 5.4 acres. Can you figure that one out for me?
Is your point that it's not big enough for 3 lots?
Well, no,
But this
no,
is a-
what I'm
this is a-
saying is to stay within the RR5, and every lot has, because that was your question, every lot has to be 5 acres, and how?
No.
Okay,
Because it's a PRUD.
Because it's a
okay, all right,
So they have all that common area as part of the property.
okay, all right,
That's where their acreage
just an
is.
understanding, thank you. PRUDs are new, they're not new, they're old,
Yeah, there's,
but for us, we haven't had to deal with
they
them
don't have them in this form.
in this code.
parcel K is I think it said 2.49 acres.
So how are they gonna put? Guess you
Well,
can do it.
as was mentioned, the PRUD allows, it's not strictly to the 5 acres.
They could have half-acre lots if they wanted and
Yeah.
leave the rest in open space. You're condensing the density into one section of the property and leaving the rest as some form of open space.
That's correct.
Okay, any other questions? Thoughts?
So if a motion were to be made on this, do we have 2 options, Josh, where one is the 25 single-family residential lots or 22 single-family residential lots up to 6 townhome units?
You also have a third option, which is to approve either or and allow the developer, according to market, to decide if he wants to put in 1 single family and 4 townhomes, or 2 single family and 2 townhomes, or whatever the market kind of dictates for them, but to maybe allow them to choose. That would be a third option.
It's kind of a not to exceed 6 townhomes and not to exceed 3 residential lots, is that what you're thinking?
Yeah.
The only downside I've heard then is setting precedents. That's what I'm thinking, correct?
That's all I can think of, and I don't know how much precedence that sets. That's just throwing that out there. I mean, how many PRUDs do we have that would come back and ask for this? I don't know. And then again, how many PRUDs do we have in the county where they've gone out and replaced a county road? I don't know of any others. So, precedence, well, I don't,
How many PRUDs do we have currently?
I don't have an answer for that right off the top of my head.
Okay, I'm just curious.
There's quite a few.
Yeah, I guess a comment I want to make I mean, I 100% see the cost and the value and appreciate the work that was done. There was not an agreement. I guess if I were to move forward with a motion, I don't know if I'd even want to base it on that, because I don't want to set the precedence of saying, well, if you can see that you've done work for us, or, you know, a handshake kind of thing, versus us looking at the plat, original plat in the 08, that really did allow for that 25 if it would have been incorporated in the development agreement, correct? My thought.
I don't even want to tackle the motion, so.
So I'll make a motion, right? And just, you guys can make changes or amendments or whatever you want to do. I'll make a motion, we approve an amendment to Northside Creek Subdivision Development Agreement addressing the finalization of bonus density, with that density including an increase of 3 single-family residential lots, or a total of 25 single-family residential lots. Addressing the finalization of that density and inclusion of constructed amenities listed in the staff report based on the text listed in Exhibit C of the staff report dated August 20th, 2024.
Or can it be a combination of things within those?
That's my motion.
motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any comments before we call for a vote? It sounds like we've got some differing opinions. Okay, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, any opposed? Motion passes. All right, thank you. Okay, that brings us to action item number 9. Kate, you've got quite a list here. This looks like it's
Getting longer.
action 9,
I'm gonna
9,
wait
10,
for this
11,
very
12,
first
13,
one.
14, 15, and 16.
I'll
Okay.
make the motion, we postpone Kate Beckers.
I don't. Before you begin,
I'm gonna remove all your snacks.
you've got Josh, you've got Josh
What do you
staying.
think?
Is he gonna stay in a little longer? Because otherwise I have, unless I can just go through you. No, it has to be come before the board. And you can give direction to him.
He's
It's
staying
something
for the
else.
first one.
Okay.
Does that answer your question or no?
I just have a request.
Okay.
And that is I would like to direct to the planning commission to discuss and potentially put in a ordinance for the use of storage units in this county, and also to make all those that have them legal.
So let me clarify. Conex boxes are currently, in my reading of the code, are not allowed. They are not structures. They are considered outdoor storage as far as I can tell, and our code does not allow outdoor storage in certain zones. That being said, a Conex box can be turned into a structure if it is engineered and designed by an architect and an engineer together with their stamps. I believe what Commissioner Fackrell is requesting is that the commission direct staff to draft a text amendment that would allow for Conex boxes to be considered an allowed use without being turned into an actual structure. I think that's the
A
direction.
storage unit. For instance, what my
Well,
question.
it's not so a storage unit would be like Wildcat Storage, where they construct the structure and there's storage units. Conex boxes, they are used for storage, but they are not a structure. So
Right, they're not a structure, but what my request, and I have a very hard feeling on this. If you, and plus the fact there are many storage units, Connex ones, whatever they are. They're a storage unit, they're portable, which means I can pick them up and move it to a new place if I want to. But I wanted it for a purpose of putting hay in it. Not gonna, I may, in the future, may build something, at that time I come to them, put it in as a permanent structure. But up until then, it's just a portable storage unit. There are many of them throughout the county, including ourselves. But yet I was told the county is above the law. So because of that, I'm requesting,
county's above.
yes, we've got them. We have them throughout the county.
Said that.
Well,
Doesn't mean.
No, I said it. And so, for
Oh.
example, if like we can have something in a floodplain that others wouldn't be allowed to do. I mean, there's certain times where the county, and I'm not saying that I think it's good policy and good optics, but that's just the nature of land use in county.
It is true that government doesn't technically have to follow the zoning laws, but that, I mean, we're still,
I'm not willing to go to jail for 6 months to bring in my storage container. But I'm also not willing to put in $25,000 to build me a barn. So this is a less expensive way, especially if you can get a less expensive and a nice looking storage container. That was the main purpose in it. So I'm requesting that we make all of them legal in the county that are currently out there in maybe an RR1 zone and above.
So, Josh, just a question on that. I think it's just fine to have you guys look into it. I think
Mobile
it's
storage
great.
shed, maybe call
I-
it instead of a storage unit, or you can
I
come
guess
up with
only-
the right
yeah, you
terminology.
can decide
Because
that.
there's other structures that are probably similar, like some of those sheds you get from, like the Amish sheds or whatever. I would consider probably a similar thing where they don't go through county engineering by any means. They're built off-site. I don't know if they even have engineering, some of them.
I believe most of those sheds are constructed to the
Maybe they
IBC.
do.
Yeah.
I
and if
mean, they
they're-
may be built to IBC, but it doesn't mean that, you know what I mean? I think there are multiple types of
Yeah.
mobile storage that maybe we could consider.
And Commissioner Fackrell's made a point that I think it's kind of a given, but when you create a new ordinance and we put it in play, we can't go backwards. I mean, we can't go 30 years back to what somebody has on their property and say, hey, that
Yeah.
is not how we've created this new ordinance. I mean,
Right.
it's a given that those can continue to exist.
Yeah, and not only that, but I don't have an active enforcement currently. So even if the council or the commission were to say, we don't want any Conex boxes, you need to go after the owners for that, I wouldn't have the manpower or the staff to do that anyway. And if it's been on the property for X number of years, I would consider that a grandfather's use. So
Well, just so we're careful, pre-existing non-conforming structures are only legal to stay if they were legal at the time they were put on. So if there was no regulation and it was built, then it would be a pre-existing non-conforming structure so long as it's not a hazard and
yeah.
subject to condemnation.
Except Conex boxes aren't considered a structure based on.
I'm not disagreeing with you on that.
Yeah.
I think we can look at it, but I think you need to be really careful as to what zones you allow that to occur in. I mean, where we have our place in southern Utah, there are people who create little Connex enclaves, and I'm grateful to live in a subdivision that, or have a place that prohibits that by private covenant, because it gets to look, I mean,
Look bad.
some of them can look okay and others are not so nice, and then after they stay for a long time, they all start to look fairly bad. And so I wouldn't, it's one thing if you're putting that on an agricultural property where it's way away from the neighbors, but.
Unless you don't limit it, and then they can
Yeah,
be
and
loaded
I'm
up.
not suggesting they be lived in at all, but,
Yeah.
Well, I'm talking about
No,
limit the
limited how
number you
many.
have.
oh, even then, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, what they look at would have to, from my perspective, look at all of those kinds of things. Because while I'm willing to have the staff take a look at it, I'm not sure I would be voting in favor of it, but that would depend on what they came back with.
And one of the things I would want to have required in there is that they are either new or weren't used. That way they're clean. And I don't know if you can put that into the code.
They're only clean for so long,
Right.
and the sun
They
moves the
deteriorate.
paint fairly quickly.
Yeah, so's my house.
The other issue you have with Conex boxes is what you mentioned. You can pick them up and move them anywhere, which means that even if we require a setback and we go out and we inspect and make sure that they've placed it according to setbacks for accessory structures, even though it's not a structure, it doesn't stop them from moving it.
I mean, that's kind of true. I mean, I got my shed permitted. Actually, it didn't require a permit. I came to the county to see if I needed a permit, and as long as it was under 200 feet. but they did tell me what the setback requirements are.
Correct.
But so it's not on a foundation, it's just built on a wooden structure. Technically, if I wanted to crane it to another part of the yard, I could probably pick it up and not have it disintegrate.
And that's the reason why this all came up, because I went in just asking for that, because I was told before that it was a 200 square foot storage container or some kind of a building.
No,
you could
it's
do
200
without
square feet or less structure.
structure. And at the time before you got here, they had said that it could be a portable 200 square feet building. Well, now I want a 40 foot instead of 20 foot, because I have that much hay. So,
It sounds like you'll look into it.
I will look into it.
Thank you.
thank you, that's all I requested.
No problem.
Sorry, so that's approval from commission to task staff?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Alrighty. So, yeah, I do have a long list, sorry. Now that I have an HR, I kind of have time to actually do my job. So the first one is the conversation of adding a plan reviewer code enforcer to the planning department. We're having a lot of issues with code enforcement. We currently only do code enforcement based off of citizen complaint. Our number one offenders are right-of-way. So up on the screen right now, I have, it's literally right in front of me. Yeah. So it is. So we have just two right-of-way companies, I guess, that are behind, and one's over $10,000 and one's over $4,000 in being in compliance with their right-of-way bonds, and that's just right-of-way bonds. We don't have any teeth because they just don't listen to us. So the other half of that being the plan reviewer is, we're obviously hoping and very supportive that Mikkel finishes and is able to become licensed. But in the interim, we kind of need somebody that is. We just have, how many plats are we up to? We had 23 active last month. What are we up to now?
We have a lot. All of our inspections as well. So
Yeah.
not just plan reviews for building permits, but all of our inspections are now 4 days out. Yesterday there were no spaces until Friday, and probably by the end of today, I'll have to check with Judy, but by tomorrow, Friday will be full, and we'll already be scheduling for Monday. And
That is with using the third party as well?
that's with using WC3
Two third
and
parties.
Both of them.
And Shums Coda.
Shums Coda. I don't know if Shums Coda is able to do inspections yet. They can do plan review. We're pulling all the plan review from WC3, and we're going to put it to Shums Coda because there's been so many balls dropped with the plan review side of things. But the inspections themselves as well. Dave is pretty much spending a majority of his time doing inspections. Like today was 100% inspections. Tomorrow I think he's got a 50-50, which means half day inspections, half day he's got to try to catch up. And then Thursday I think is all day inspections as well, and then Friday's another half day. So that gives our building official 2 half days in a week to catch up with 4 10-hour days.
Catch up on plan review?
I don't get that.
Well, 410s allows him an hour before all the calls and all the inspections to start catching up on emails, and an hour after. And so the 410s, I think, for the building official is a good thing, because the 5 to 8, he's out doing inspections, he's returning phone calls, and returning all the emails as well, and the phone calls, as well as all the plan reviews that he's doing. That additional hour on the end of each day is very, very good.
So we obviously see a need for this. We think that position would be a $65,000 FTE. So just wanted to start
That's salary only, not benefits.
that's salary only, not benefits. Our hope is the more we take on, the less we're paying a third party. and that it will, at the end, be a wash. But that's not something that's gonna wash day one. So,
Josh, I'm sure you have this data, but I'd love to see kind of the stats of your numbers of applications and such,
Sure.
and how that's grown over the last few years, because I think that tells a story. And maybe you could kind of show us, okay, you know, we had, I don't know, 3 employees 4 years ago and had X number of applications. Now we've got 4 employees and we've got X number of applications, and here's where we're trending. To
I
me,
can
that
definitely
helps us understand kind of the need.
I
Right.
can definitely compile that. I will say for single-family permits only, a month ago, we were at approximately 125 for the year to date, and that was 7 months in. The entire year last year, we may have gotten over 100, maybe. So
You've got from the
I think
COG
Dave said
meeting
114 last
yesterday,
year.
if you
14
have
all
that
year.
paper, the packet, if you've got it, it has the numbers in it.
but I think they're wanting historical over time. Like when we had 3 employees in the office,
Right.
this is how many permits we cranked out. When we had 4, like right now we have 4, this is how much
But
we're
I think
cranking
the other
out.
As of
justification,
Yeah, as of yesterday, there was 135, according to what Judy said, that we've had already this year.
and that's just
Just.
single family.
just
Yeah.
single-
Doesn't include the solar, it doesn't include the electrical, it doesn't include anything like that.
Yeah.
Just single family.
So yeah, the whole point of this was to start the discussion of what
Right.
data you guys would need to see for us to justify that position. It's very easy for us boots on ground to say, oh yeah, we 100% need it, but we're not the chief budget officers of the county.
My
so-
question is last year we budgeted for his office to have an extra person that was gonna learn the stuff that Dave Webster
That Mikkel,
That's
she
Mikkel.
was
with
promoted.
Mikkel. I thought she was the extra planner one. that we
No,
were
she's
trying to do.
actually, she initializes all of the residential plan review currently. Dave checks her work, and then they finalize the permits for the single family. We've been putting all the commercial out to WC3, and there's been quite a few balls that have been dropped there, and reviews that have gone on way too long. And then I believe WC3 is also doing all the solar. So, I mean, there's a lot that if we had another plan reviewer / building inspector, whatever, we could pull back.
The other, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was just gonna say, the other data I'd wanna see is, how much we've paid to third party for inspection. I know that Kate mentioned we wouldn't see the immediate, I actually think if we
Probably
hired
won't.
somebody and didn't use them, it would be an immediate possibly savings actually, if we're
Okay.
paying that much.
Well, and to piggyback off that comment, the last time we've gone out for RFP, nobody applies. And
Yeah,
so we're
the-
stuck.
That's true. The only company that submitted a proposal was WC3, who we already had. And then I tasked Judy with calling additional companies to get additional RFPs. We got Shums Coda to apply. A majority of the other ones either never responded, promised to submit a proposal but never did, or their numbers were disconnected.
So, the same way we got Jeremy Lance, what about partnering with one of the universities and seeing if we can find somebody that they have already been training to be a planner or a inspector or something like that. And I don't know which university would be the best for using that, or college, whether it be Salt Lake Community College or whatever, and just see if we can bring somebody on, if we agree with it.
Would that be licensed?
Yeah, I'm not
No,
sure
they wouldn't be
would
licensed, but they'd be an
That's-
intern.
But that's what we need.
Well, but I mean, they would be an intern for a potential job at the end.
But I have an intern. I need a license.
Well, we had an intern couple of years ago when we got Jeremy
Right.
Lance.
But that's
I
why,
think that
yeah.
that ought to be left to the department head. to
Right, I'm
determine
just
how-
saying that that's a direction that we could do if we can't seem to find anybody else.
I can appreciate that. The fact that Dave Webster is coming up on retirement, probably within the next 2 to 3 years, we do need somebody that's fully licensed and certified that can step into that position when he decides to retire.
I can agree.
My comment when
Well,
you brought this
frankly,
up is,
so it may be both. I mean, you might want to go out, hire a full-time employee.
And
You
an
might
intern.
want to establish a relationship with the university to see if there's someone that we can set up an apprenticeship program or something so that people coming out of school might be interested in taking the position so that your full-time can move into Dave's, your student can become a full-time and get
Building a bench.
licensed.
That's
and
it.
so
That's
forth.
exactly.
I think we can do all those things. I'm 100% in support of you guys moving forward with this. Apocryphal information suggests that we're taking a long time to get plan reviews done.
Some of them are, yeah.
I don't know, I think my comment when you first brought it up is like, how are we gonna get someone that is a plan reviewer that's gonna wanna do code enforcement? And you're like, they're out there. There's people there, they just love it.
Are.
One that's got a little chip on their shoulder.
Oh my God.
Can I ask you one
Everyone else?
question that you said
I'll do
something
it.
that concerned me just a hair?
Sure.
Is it necessary to have Dave redoing all her work, looking over her whole job? Why can't she do her job and him count on her doing her job?
My understanding is that she is studying for the tests, and as soon as she's certified, then he won't have to do that. But for her to get the education, get to the point where she can do that, then he really needs to mentor her, since she's only been doing it for the last 8 months. And so there is quite a bit of mentoring there and help to make sure that things are done correct.
So she's not certified.
No, she was not certified. The idea was that we would give her a certain amount of time to get certified, and then we'd have to address it if that certification doesn't occur.
Thanks, Josh.
Yep.
Thank you, Josh.
My next thing, which was, I'm glad Chief was here earlier to bring this up and, didn't stay 2.5 hours. But so our intent was not asking that we go to direct shot into a fire district, a countywide fire district. It was that we do the feasibility study of what that would look like if we were to do a fire district. I could find several examples in the last 5 years, not 5 years, last 10 years of when a feasibility study was done. This is the one closest to home that I could find that was done in 2018, which was a discussion of combining Riverdale, Washington Terrace, and South Ogden. This ended up being not feasible. And so they are still 3 separate departments. There is still conversation about merging them, but the numbers just didn't play out. So that's kind of why we're looking at the feasibility study route instead of just assuming we know what's best and going forward when we don't necessarily have all that data. I just know with fire trucks going from $680 to $1.9 million for a ladder, and it's 4 years out, and $420,000 for an ambulance, and I'm 3 years out. It's killing my 10-year projections.
Ambulance is up to 420.
420 for a full deck. We just can't get the chassis. That's why I'm like, if anyone in Morgan County wants to start a chassis business, like we can get in the steel industry, maybe we could save some money. With all the steel that's going up in WPR, surely we could get a bulk discount. So
Do we have any idea on the cost to do a feasibility study?
that's where I've been struggling. So because this closest one was in 2018, they paid $22,500, but that was 2018.
Yeah, if you
But
look
again,
at page 3, it shows property tax on a $250,000 resident. I bet you can't find
Right?
one of those in any
That
of
would be
those places
lovely.
anymore.
I don't even think you could buy it a single wide on a quarter acre for that. So yeah, that's been the hard part is there's lots of like Tooele did this, but the hard part is I haven't found a county or class that has done this, and I haven't found anyone close to our demographics, regardless of class, just demographics in general, like spread of area, that has done it in the last 5 years. So I would be interested in knowing, and I could reach out to Zions and see if they give us an estimate so we could at least have that conversation, but wasn't going to move forward with that without seeing if this was even something you guys were interested in. I know, Mike, it's your portfolio and you've talked to him, but that doesn't mean the other 4 haven't been involved, so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I have mixed feelings about a countywide fire district. I think if a district is operated well, that's great. I think there are issues and concerns with them, though. And I think it really comes down to your board for that district and how
That's
that's
true.
set up. That's really my,
So it's not a
Biggest
concern about the combination, it's what is the...
no, it's how it's governed.
It's the end,
because-
what we have at the end.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen, well, and I'll take Mountain Green as an example, and this is nothing against them, but that board has doubled the tax rate multiple years in a row. If we tried to do that as a government entity, I mean, people would come out with their pitchforks. But I feel like sometimes these districts kind of fly under the radar, so people don't show up to the meetings and they don't understand until they get their tax bill. And of course, the tax bill still says Morgan County across the top, so they still come and complain to us. But
So what if
I
it
think
was
that's
a-
more my concern, and I think there's ways to deal with that. I mean, maybe you do a bigger board instead of a 3-member. Maybe the board has something to do with the elected officials still. I don't know. I think there's ways to get around that. That's just been my concern with it. And I know that's been the concern of previous, because this has been brought up with previous councils and commissions here, is, hey, what if we did a board? And that's always been kind of the rub as well. Some of these districts end up being, I mean, you look at Weaver Basin is a district that they're doubling their tax rate this year. You know, again, right? And even though we only pay a small amount, it adds up. And I think that's my biggest rub with districts, is that sometimes they become an opportunity to be managed in such a way that's advantageous to them, but maybe doesn't take the public desire into account. Well, your board, the board governs everything, so they would decide the wages, they would decide the tax rate. Now, they are limited at, at a certain amount, they can only increase it so much.
Do they sit on their board?
Who, the,
People involved in the fire district?
no, they can't sit on the board, but that doesn't mean that the fire district people can't go out and recruit the people to run for the board that they want to run for the board. And you guys have seen how people clamor to get into this position or into the planning commission, right? They don't. I mean,
Except this time.
so, I mean, this
So-
time we had more than we've had in the past, but I've run 3 times now unopposed. And Robert's run unopposed, and you
Been opposed.
were opposed both times, but
Matt
point
was-
is, it's not like people clamor to get into those positions, and so it's not far-fetched for the operator of the district, whoever that is, to go recruit their own people to be in charge there, and then they, I think, have a little more influence than perhaps they should.
So
doesn't happen
I
with
viewed
every
this
district.
more as a request to consider whether or not it's worthwhile to consolidate the fire service within Morgan County, whether that's within and under the county fire department, a newly created county-wide fire district, which would require subsuming Mountain Green. So I think it could go under either umbrella. This would just evaluate whether or not economically that makes sense and would be something that should be considered.
And we could
so the
also-
question
Certainly
is,
not opposed at all to that. I think that's a good idea.
So are you just approving getting a
Just an estimate, give us an
I think
I think
idea
we
of
need
what
an
it would
estimate
cost.
before we know.
Study.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
if it's gonna cost us $100,000 to find out,
Right,
we may
no.
say that's not
No.
something we wanna do right now.
Yeah,
I
but it would
can't
also be-
imagine it would be that much money.
I just had the thought of we could do an SSD as special service district instead of a district. But I would just have to research what the difference would be on governing bodies, but
Well,
that
and
might
maybe that's
solve
the
that,
thing we ought to
solve
look
that.
into, some of the options, but
Yeah.
either way, an analysis of this type would be helpful because it would show you what the actual costs are
Mhm.
per household for the current district and the current county operation. Maybe that would inform, well, what's the
Yeah,
better option?
and I mean, if you follow the Wasatch County model, they create multiple service districts, and then they start a meeting, and they have on hat one, I'm now the Jordanelle Special Service District, and they have a meeting, but it's the same people sitting there, it's just the county commission.
Like the county commission.
And
when
you
they
can
went into-
generally,
Organizations.
when you create districts, you can indicate that's the form of governance you want to provide, which would again address your
Which could
concern.
address that concern.
Which I will tell you, coming from Wasatch, if you get SSD happy, it will be miserable, because they have 42 in Wasatch
Yeah, they have
when I
a lot.
left.
Some of them
I don't know that
doing
we
the same
wanna
thing.
take
A lot.
on a lot of those other
Take on
things,
that.
but
Okay.
anyway.
We also don't
So-
want to.
Let's get a bid at least and find
Yeah,
out
and
what
we'll
it's
do
gonna
some
cost.
research on SSD versus district and, okay. The next one is, I think I have your green light, but I talked to Mike about this. So we are out of compliance with a couple offices as far as security, just like we were with Garrett's. One of those is affectionately what we call Koyan's office, but the sheriff's admin's office, because they review body cam video and other documentation that's not open to the public. They're technically supposed to be unaccessible, and you can walk right behind her desk. So we tore out that old closet in her office to see if it would be feasible to just make a service window right there, put a lock on the door, call it a day. It's cinder block. So we'd be looking at $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 maybe, and it still wouldn't give them the space that they need. So I brought it up, the idea with Mike to maybe just switch. I had it wrong at first, but the district court office, so the one right next to the clerk's office, and Koyan's office. District court is actually really excited about that because it's closer to the court. They don't use a third of the space that they have now. Their concern, the only two concerns that they voiced is, one, apparently the wall between the clerk's office and theirs is paper. And so you can hear everything that's going on. So that would need to be addressed, or they would just need to watch body cam video with headphones, which I think they do now anyway. And then we would have to spec the existing Koyan's or sheriff's admin's office to what they would need, which is an external computer, which there's space for that. It would be, so to me, it's so much fiscally cheaper to swap the offices and update that to the minimum that they need for district court than to tear down a cinder block wall to try to make it compliant with our state compliance for the sheriff's admin's office. So in talking to district court, they essentially will not talk to me unless I have essentially a quorum permission and in the meeting minutes that you guys are in support of it, and that it's not just essentially their staff saying, I want a different office. So they won't even essentially talk to me unless you guys agree that you're okay with them moving offices.
My opinion was I don't care where they're at in the building as long as they're fine with it.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you have strong feelings about where they're at in the building, but
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Okay. Okay, the next one, I thought Janet had that done, and I forgot she had training that week, so I have to skip E. I apologize. I didn't even realize it wasn't in the packet until today. Oh, I'm sorry, E, Echo. F, I put in the I-84 interchange 116-page report. You're welcome to read it.
so I did go through the
God bless you.
public comment. I skimmed it. I didn't read every single
read a
word, but I
few.
read most of it. Overwhelmingly, there was positive comment, and overwhelmingly, there was comment to please leave the exit 92. Yeah, 92 open.
That's a pretty contentious topic, apparently.
Yeah, that
We
was
talked about it in COG, we've talked about it
wrong.
pretty much in everything, and it's 50-50 no matter where you go. So we had a meeting, and I unfortunately.
I didn't think it was 50-50 from those comments.
I don't know of anybody that says
I
what
didn't- I haven't heard
except
anybody
for
say they want it
Except
closed.
for, who was it in our meeting?
The fire chief,
Fire chief.
Odie,
And I think because,
And UDOT.
I think it's anybody that lives up in that area. They would
Exactly.
love that closed. I get
Yeah,
that.
they're
Get it
trying to
close
reduce the
it.
traffic up there.
yeah, and that's pretty much
Well-
what I'm hearing, is those that live
That's
there
not 50-50.
wanna shut it off so that the
Yeah.
traffic cuts down.
Well, and I think we need to be careful. Was that comment from Chief Brindell in his official capacity
That's,
due to
I literally
fire?
live, straight
or
up
was it
said.
because of where he
I
lives?
live on that
He said
street,
because he lives
I
there.
wanna
That's what I
reduce the
figured.
traffic, he was very
so
upfront about it.
I would just say, let's be careful not putting a lot
To
of weight
misappropriate,
in,
yeah.
more
It's
weight
not
than we
50-50.
would.
But so they, I
And
did.
actually, those that were negative, there were some that posted multiple times.
So there's, so I did bring that up at our last scoping meeting. Josh was in that meeting with me, which I greatly appreciated. Was he on the call with that as well, Jared?
Yes, I was.
Okay, was Josh?
Oh, it was Josh, yeah, he was.
Okay, because at this point, they're saying there's not the density to justify the two, and I'm like, well, there may not be today, but then you're gonna remove infrastructure you may have to replace in 6 years, so.
What's stupid is that they're gonna have to keep the bridge there regardless. So the only infrastructure they're removing is an on-ramp and an off-ramp. And I don't know that, I would guess the cost to remove them is probably gonna be more than the maintenance over the next 20 years. Maybe I'm wrong.
So that's the hot topic right now. So I requested that meeting with UDOT and the I-84 team, and with Commissioner Anderson, our emergency management director, our fire chief, the Mountain Green fire chief, our fire marshal, just so that because their biggest concern was if we have to shut down the canyon, right now you can go from 200 to 700 up to Old Highway, and we have, essentially a relief valve for emergency services. If we shut down that, we might be essentially removing our emergency service relief valve. And like I said in the last meeting, the farmer in me just says, well, let's cattle gate it, and if we need it, we'll open it back up, but it just doesn't make sense to destroy infrastructure that's, one, already paid for, and two, isn't harming anyone in the estimation of those of us that don't live on that street. So that's where we are with the study.
I can put it in, again, in a public meeting. I've said it, I think, 3 different times to UDOT and haven't seen anything yet, but want to see the ordinance or rule or law that says it has to be removed.
And they couldn't present it?
They haven't given anything to us yet that says that.
We have asked several times.
The other comment would be, show me any other example where a new interchange has come in and a adjacent interchange is removed. I don't even know if that's ever been done in the state, but I might be wrong. I just haven't seen that. So those 2 questions have never been
Both very good
answered.
points.
Right.
They did remove the one up here in Morgan at the Morgan exit. At Geneva.
Well, they moved it.
They moved it down further.
Remove, not
Yeah.
move.
But
Remove.
they removed that exit.
But that one was a move, it wasn't a new interchange, it was moving the off-ramp. from
Right, but I'm
there.
just saying they moved the exit.
But I think that's different
Well,
than,
And they talk about it in terms of proximity, and compared to other places in the country, it's like,
Where you have
these
an
are
exit every
miles and miles apart. You have an on-ramp every 2 blocks,
Yeah.
with little ramps where you have to completely floor it just to get up to speed or get run over.
Okay, anything else on the I-84? Okay,
When is that meeting?
it was last week. I will honestly say they have not been very good about communicating meetings. The last 2, they have called me 5 minutes in, been like, we forgot to put you on the, and then there I am. Okay, I'll drop what I'm doing and hop on, because this is like the #1 topic in our county, so I gotta be there. So I have kind of been on the team that's over that. Okay, we have to be included. Like, this isn't a passing, okay, we'll approve it when you're done and just deal with what you give us. We want a seat at the table, and we can't have it if you don't invite us.
Sorry, is that for the I-84 interchange
Yep.
project? So we came up with these monies, not Wasatch Front Regional Council. I want to make that clear too.
No. I mean, them not communicating with us the I-84 meetings.
That's exactly what I mean.
Okay.
These dollars that we got, $5 million that our lobbyists and us went and got from the legislature, was appropriated directly
Oh,
to the
to
county.
do this report?
It did not go through Wasatch Front Regional Council. So we worked hard to get these dollars, and now we're trusting them to manage it correctly, but we got these dollars.
So
let's just make that a little bit clear.
we need the Evite to the meeting.
Well,
So, along with the I-84, if it's okay if I mention this, you were there. I met with Brad D., who is a new commissioner of transportation. He's from our area, not Morgan, but Weaver County. And we have 2 individuals that are on the Transportation Advisory Commission. and one of them is Rhonda Menlove. They are both in favor of us getting this on, moved up the whatever list it
STIP.
is, the STIP, moved up that list so that way we can get funded for it. They ask for unity. That's what they're asking for, is unity among the leadership and among the different groups, to basically continue that effort. They will work on it and continue to work on it. I had a discussion with them afterwards for that. So, that's all we can do at this point, is just continue. And they're gonna shoot for budget, and WFRC has put it on their list higher up to be able to, and you'll need to talk about that in your regional council this week, is keeping us on that list for the legislature to get us the funding we need.
We've also talked to Brad D about doing a presentation for the transportation committee, so hopefully he can make that happen too.
Awesome. So then I had a bunch of stuff on unfinished business from past commission meetings. This is, we had talked about needing the electrical updated out of the fairgrounds. We did get an estimate. We have not put it out for bid. This was not a bid. This was just to give us a ballpark idea. As you can see, it's around $320,000, but that's with additional poles for, you're the one that spec'd this, so you're probably
Well,
more
I didn't
knowledgeable.
fully spec it, Brett did, but, yeah, it includes some pedestals for food trucks, that sort of thing, so there's quite a bit here. I think we need to actually go through and do an RFP and really spec it right and decide what we want to do.
Speakers, lights,
And I know.
Sound has been a tough one because we've upgraded the sound over the years a few times over there, and we've put some pretty nice systems in time. And when you have people that don't understand how to run them, they can be cumbersome to run, and then something breaks and they get ruined. And so we've always just rented good sound, but it's very expensive.
Very expensive.
So it'd be better if we did have good sound, but we need to really think about that and how to do that. Now, one thing we need to do from a sound perspective is we don't currently have a fairgrounds-wide sound system where we can make announcements. That doesn't need to be a fancy system. That can be very basic, but just for,
Lost kids.
for example, during the ATV rodeo, Lost Kids is a great example, but during the ATV rodeo, we had a wind event come in, and we had to ask people to please leave the stand because the trees were dropping limbs down. Being able to give some instruction like, hey, please congregate under this building, or please go here during this event is pretty important. So that's something we need to figure out too. So anyway, there's a lot more that I think needs to go into this. I think the cost will end up being higher by the time we add some of those things in, but if we're going to do it, I think we ought to do it right and do it right.
So respective to the gentleman that spoke in public comment, I don't really want to put this out for RFP unless we're serious about doing it. I can tell you, so that's our one regional park. This would obliterate that impact fee fund. But there is money in the fairgrounds improvement budget that could almost 50-50 it. Do we need to have that conversation with the fairgrounds board?
I would actually think we ought to consider ARPA funds for it.
We could do that as well.
Because we use some of those for infrastructure. We've still got some ARPA funds left.
So we have about $328,000 in the impact fee fund, but we were going to spend some of that for the trail.
Yeah, we've
and
got
we were-
other things I think we need to spend, and the fields as well.
Okay.
Part of that as well was the main source of the power is on the end of that building, and where we have the opportunity to expand the size of that building, and WPR is willing to help us with that. That could cover some of the electrical also. But I agree with Skinny T. We have got to send out RFPs that are clear and decisive. There's nothing worse than bidding and rebidding jobs and never getting them. It's one thing if you're always high, but we need to be very clear on what we send out for RFPs. That's frustrating.
So I think, Kate,
So get with Brett.
we ought to well, we have to get to Brett. I think we ought to get with the Fairgrounds Board. I think we ought to get with Recreation as well, because I don't know what other uses Recreation may have for the facility that we ought to consider. But let's talk about that too. I mean, this electrical is really on in the core Fairgrounds area, and the ball fields and sports recreation area, but there are some uses that we could potentially use those areas for. We ought to consider. But I think we need to have a meeting with all those folks and talk about the needs, and then we can talk about that RFP, so.
Okay.
Well, I do think people like J&J would be willing to help us with an RFP.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with going to somebody and asking,
They know
we
what
need
needs to
we
be
need
done,
help
too.
with the RFP, so everybody's bidding apples for apples.
Okay. I'll reach out to them as well. It was very nice of them to get us an estimate. Speaking of.
They've done a lot of work for us over there. That's one reason why they kind of know what's going on. They've fixed their arena lights for us multiple times. They're kind of band-aided together currently.
Just a reminder that commissioners have mandatory annual state training.
We have what?
That annual training that someone is, what was I supposed to say? Jared Anderson is the only one that has turned in his certificate.
Oh, you're talking about the.
What? I don't
open
even know
meetings
what-
training?
Yeah.
Which one?
Is it open meetings?
Yeah, open
I
meetings.
finished that one.
Didn't we hear?
You just need to give your certificate to
You're
Leslie.
Every year you're supposed to.
You have to do it every
Didn't
year.
we hire a general manager to do that for us?
We have to do
Watch
it
a video.
individually. We did, Garrett
Watched
gave us the
plenty of
training though.
videos.
I mean, that should count actually. You
Yeah.
can have your.
So we
attorney
just
do
need a
that.
certificate?
Plus
Well,
Wasatch
all
Front
the
gave it
auditor
to me.
needs is
WFRC's
in.
done it. I've
Yeah.
done it twice
Yeah,
now
I've done
with
it twice with them, or 3
Wasatch
times.
Integrated this year.
So you're very well trained. That's
Yeah,
what I'm
we're
hearing.
very well trained.
Still
Plus,
need
I had it with
documentation.
the UAC at the UAC Legislative Management Meeting.
All the auditor needs is approved minutes where it says that we did
we
the
did.
training.
And that you were present at the meeting.
And, yeah, and that you were present when I did the training.
Well,
Have that.
appreciate
Which meeting
you
was that?
training us right now, Garrett.
Yeah, so, we did it
Is that
July 2nd or 16th, I think, so, yeah.
Sorry,
It is in the minutes.
Okay,
We
awesome.
did that at the end of our first meeting. So that would have been July 16th, because it was when we were going through the policies and procedures, and then at the end, we supplemented, because policies and procedures, we were already addressing the Open Meetings Act quite a bit, and then we just filled in the gaps at the end of that work session.
Okay.
Ryan
Speaking
Jen.
of offices that have failed audit, the clerk auditor's office failed its election protection audit. And the beauty is pretty much everyone in the state did, unless you're a first-class county. So they've acknowledged that it's an issue, and we're talking about things like bulletproof film on any outside window, and no access into it without a key fob, and only, just no access to the machinery whatsoever. And because they've acknowledged that this is a statewide issue, they are funding it. So we got an estimate, if I can pull that one up. We got an estimate from Corey Adams, what that would look like, and this does not include the film because I told Brett to do the film correctly, but instead it was miscommunicated and he put tint in and not bullet resistant film. Because I guess that's what we did in court, was tint.
So in the courtroom at the end, they place tint on the windows, but they also keep those blinds closed so that someone can't have a direct shot at the judge.
But just like with the new school protection law, it's supposed to be bullet resistant film.
So is this another case of legislation that was passed?
Yep, but they're funding it.
They are funding it.
They are funding it.
Beautiful.
But I just
Okay.
need your permission, because I'm not saying they're gonna fund the
So-
whole thing.
Oh,
Did we go out for more bids than just
This
one?
is not a bid, this is an estimate, because I
Okay.
had to have an estimate to send to the state for a request that they fund it. So, but I'm not gonna go to the state and ask for money without your permission.
Yeah, we should
Um,
definitely ask for it though.
Because another thing that they are considering, because it failed, is we are on the short list to get a new court building. just for court. They will build it, but we have to provide the ground. But that's probably 2025, 2026, but we are shortlisted for that because that also failed. So we limped it along.
So do we
With
not
our
want to
film.
do this
No,
so
no,
that
this
we
is-
continue to fail and build this court building?
This is the circuit clerk's office. The court would literally just be the courtroom,
Maybe a holding
the
cell.
Sally Port, the holding cell, judge chambers, and district court chambers.
And this building doesn't fill?
Oh, no, it failed bad. That's why we're shortlisted
So-
on
so
getting a
if
new one.
that's-
In general.
They're just a
In general.
priority of the district
just-
court more than the county.
Yeah.
So if this is the case, why don't we put into combination of that and building a building?
Don't think I haven't thought about that, but we don't have the money. So,
That's-
yeah.
You're talking.
we're talking
I
a
know,
bond and a
millions.
referendum and all types of stuff.
Right. But I'm just saying, if that's the case, we ought to be putting into plans as to where a future building might be built along with that justice court building. Because, I mean, I've heard a lot of different scenarios that maybe we can have the sheriff's department and the justice courts and everything on the bottom floors and build it 2 or 3 story up or something. I
As
don't
long
know.
as they'll
And
pay
then
for it,
also
I'm not
putting in an auditorium for the library, so, you know.
Yeah. So I just need your permission to reach out to the
Don't
state and
put
said, here's the
Band-Aids
estimate
over
we
it.
would give. I need to get back into this estimate, the film, because it's not in there, because I thought that was done. But then to get with the state and say, hey, we'd like to apply for the election protection grant. This is our, what is it, the shovel ready. This is our shovel ready estimate. So,
It's the most expensive windows and doors I've ever seen.
so that, because they have to be,
It's crazy.
and they have to have the little slots, and so essentially, honestly, let me see if I can draw on this.
In the wrong business. I'm
What
not
it would
selling
look
bulletproof.
like. So currently, their office. Let me just add a page so I can scribble on something. Okay, so currently, their office, is here, and then you have door, and you have door. So this would actually take out this wall in its entirety. And it would make a wall like this, so it's not impacting our ADA access into the hallways. And then you'd have work window here, drop box for balloting, work window here, door, but the doors would remain locked and key fobmed. So then you would have essentially
How am I gonna get
Katie's
my
desk
mail?
here, and you'd have Penny's desk here.
Go to Kate.
Huh?
I said, how am I going to get my mail in that office?
Bob?
There
I don't
are
know.
some ways to save some money on that. It doesn't need a whole new ceiling. There is a,
Have you seen that ceiling?
yes.
Have
It's
you
like
seen this ceiling?
Yeah.
I had to put a piece of paper in this wall to make it not look so obvious that there was a giant hole.
Well, I'll tell you
Oh,
what,
Matt, you're being reminded to turn your mic on.
Well, if we're,
That's all my messages I get during this meeting are from Jeremy. Tell
If
him to turn
we're-
his mic on. Tell him to turn his mic on.
if we're gonna not, if we're gonna end up tearing down a building, I don't wanna put a bunch of, I mean, this is sufficient until it tears down.
This is how we get our taxes raised.
Oh my gosh. So that was the idea, is because there's not enough space in there right now to take well, first of all, it's marble, that marble slab. So we're wanting to repurpose the marble slab, so maybe that's costing us money, because I believe it was donated. It's got the plaque on it, and I don't want to lose it. But so there's just no way in its current formation, because those desks, like where Katie's desk ends and Leslie's desk starts, is already narrow. We couldn't then create behind her desk a space for walk-up traffic to a window, which is what created the idea of the built-out. Does it say 4
Let's
feet?
see what kind of money we can get from the state to do
Right.
this project and go from there.
Okay, so there's that one, and then on to spending money. Let me mark that that one done. The AC in there's essentially not really AC in parts of the library to include their break room / storage room and what used to be the historical society, because I guess they were freezing all the time, so they just never put one in. So we got I asked for 3, but I got 2 estimates of the 3 companies that we made appointments with to come out to put in mini splits in those. One came back, I don't know why this will not close. One came back as a total, they did a split out for each one of $10,927, and then another for $11,510 to put those splits in. And I can pull up those estimates. I know, but it just takes a minute to get people to show up to give us estimates. They're a little busy.
Little portable heaters back in those areas too, from what I've heard.
So here's the mini split estimate from ACS, was the 11.5, and then the other one. I have these pulled up and then I keep closing them. Here we go. Royal Plumbing, they split it into 2, so one was $5,713. And the other one was less. It was $5,214 for a total of $10,927.
Your thought to pay for that is from library fund
I have
balance?
no idea.
If I were to,
There's
I
a
would-
pretty good
I
fund
would say
balance
yes,
there.
because they have a good fund balance. That's what I would.
Yeah, you know better than anybody. What?
I say I'm just being, I said take it from the senior citizens.
Okay. I apparently
Weaver County might
did
as well,
not
you
read
know,
the meeting or
pay
pay
for it.
attention very well. Garrett's had to rewatch it. I had to rewatch it. I guess we were supposed to be having a Nine Springs work session at this meeting. That's what I said. I was like, what?
So,
Asked me on the planning commission, asked me about that, and I
Yeah.
said they were like, we
So
got
in the
uninvited
meeting-
to it, and I said, I didn't think there was one.
So in the meeting, you wanted you said you didn't want to wait a whole month, so let's put it on the next one, which I apparently space cadetted and missed that. So,
it wasn't an action item. It was basically saying, should we put it on in a month? And Mike said, I don't need a month. We could put it in 2 weeks,
Us to review and
to
get-
review it and come back for a work session. But then we started talking about other things, and it was never
we didn't stay
technically
on topic.
actioned. And then when it ended, and so Josh was under the impression it was going forward. I was a little surprised. I went back and listened to the meeting. I'm like, well, I see where you thought that we were going to have that. But we reached out to the applicant, and they said, oh, we weren't planning on it. And so they were hoping for the September 3rd.
So we being Garrett did send them an email saying what they specifically asked for was your county, was their engineer, their.
Josh said, if we do this again, it would be
The
very
same
helpful
presentation.
if you have your planner, your engineer, and possibly your attorney there to help answer some of the questions that were being asked.
Otherwise, it's
by
the
the
same
commission.
slide deck.
Well, they were supposed to.
Thank you.
Be closer to
I was
it.
under the understanding that they were gonna go back and take all our concerns and address all of them and then bring something back to us, because I felt like Mike basically said, we're not gonna approve a PID. So you better look for an alternative there. We're not gonna approve 2,700 homes, so you might wanna look at that.
Now, that was my opinion. If you feel
No, that was my
differently-
That was my
Guys,
opinion too, that's
I-
mine.
We made comments to it.
I think we all made comments. to
And
that.
there
That
was a
my thought,
request-
too, if they were going to go revise that
Because
based on some
they've
of
got
the-
a lot of revising to do before I wanna see them.
So, because we obviously had a lot of audience there thinking it was public comment already, Jeremy Archibald was very kind to open that job form to give them a vehicle in which to voice their opinions. I think we're over 600. Because of course it went on Morgan Moms and everywhere else, but at least they have a vehicle
By the way, I want to make a
voice
comment,
that opinion.
a public comment about that in particular because several of those that I read, well, I'll make a few comments. Number one, there were several individuals who attacked the commission for wanting to bring a development into the county, and I want to be very clear that the county commission doesn't go out and say, you should develop this property. This is a landowner who wants to develop their property. The county commission is required by law to hear those applications. That doesn't mean that we fully support the current application, doesn't mean we even like the current application. It just means that we're required to listen to it. So for the public to understand that, I think is important. Number two, there were a lot of comments that were, I guess, derogatory towards the developer or the county. And I want to be clear that, first of all, that's unnecessary. Second of all, it's okay to disagree with the developer. And third, there were a lot of comments that seemed to, I guess, indicate that the public thought that the commission was benefiting in some way from the development. There were comments about lining your pockets and all kinds of nonsense. I want to be very clear, the county commission doesn't receive any type of benefit from these developers. If we did, we'd all be driving sports cars, and we don't, I can tell you that. So,
Have they seen my cars?
Oh my gosh.
It's just, that's something that's frustrating to me when I read those. I would rather have a comment that addresses the actual issues instead of attacking the individuals. And I think, I do appreciate those that took the time to actually do that. There were a lot of the comments, and there were a couple that said, nobody's going to read this. Well, guess what? We read them.
Yeah.
In
we read
fact, I
them
need to
all.
call Mr. Casey Green,
Yep.
and I'll do that at some point, but I haven't had time. Because he dared us to call him, basically.
Yep.
We'll do that. But
Yep, that's correct.
we do take it seriously, and we do listen, and we do read those.
Yeah.
Which is the whole reason
Public should understand.
we put the jot form
And-
out there so that it
Absolutely,
wasn't
if-
a stagnant public hearing where you had to be here between set time and set time. You
I thought
can
it was great.
You
I-
can comment at
I
4
like
a.m.
the
in the
comments,
morning.
and I think it's
you can
good.
comment at noon. You can comment on your
I
lunch break.
actually think we ought to be putting jot form out a little bit more often.
no, I
on
love
some
it,
of
and
these different
Jeremy's
things.
so quick at it.
Yeah, because it was great to get all those comments. Sure, I went through 150 of them or so, and then I says they're all the same. But there is
the
one
area
thing.
plan and the fairground plan, and we got
Yeah.
some great feedback
One-
of things we didn't think about.
One thing for the public, and I want to, when everybody talks about infrastructure, that we need to do infrastructure first, people need to realize the developer puts in the infrastructure, we don't put it in. So if they want to come to this county, they got to put it in. So,
Well, and that's how communities grow. I mean, I think, Robert, you mentioned that earlier in this meeting. They grow through development. So
I agree.
So if they get those at least two of those parties, the engineer and the planner, lined out, are you good with the work session? Or do you want to,
I would-
next year.
I would echo what Commissioner Wilson said. The comments that we made
Need
as
to be
commissioners
addressed.
Can address those also.
okay,
I made notes on the packet version of it, but do we have just their agreement that we can make those notes on?
I can send that.
'Cause I was trying to figure out how to.
because I'm sure they'd love that.
I have it
Everything
digitally
else, maybe
where
I
we
can
could
remove
even
the
do a
other
red
stuff
line, or, you know, if you wanted to do a red line, I can send the digital.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay, so
That was Z.
So specifically, though, I think they were asked to create some sort of phasing plan where they would describe how it came in. I don't know that they were specifically asked to do lower density. So I guess the question is.
I did flat out tell them that in my mind, the number
0.27,
was
yeah.
way too high. Now, I
Right.
don't know if they took that as we need to reduce density or not, but if they didn't, they weren't listening. So
Okay.
if you're listening tonight, please reduce the number of units.
Okay.
That was probably one of the number one complaints from the public in general was it's too much, it's too large.
So Garrett, are you
So-
asking us to put down all of our comments in writing and send it to them? So they
No.
don't have to interpret?
No, what I'm going to do, if it's all right, is I'll just clip that portion of the meeting where we were discussing and say, we don't want the same presentation. We'd like you to take the feedback and and be able to answer the questions you couldn't answer with your engineer, with your planner, with your attorney if the attorney comes. But we'd also like you to come back with some ideas on how you can address some of the other concerns that weren't really a full-on directive, but it was saying, hey, 16 acres versus 0.27 acres per unit is a big difference, right? So I'll clip that, I'll send it out and say, the commission is asking that you address some of these and that it's not the same presentation again.
And Garrett, I think if we pattern this after what we did with both Snow Basin and WPR, which were both very big projects and very big development agreements, the meetings and discussions, these planning commission / county commission discussions, were also a form of negotiation, where we sat down and said, look, this is too many units. What are you going to do about it? You know, we don't like that you want to put all these roads in and want the county to manage it, so what's your plan? That kind of thing. So that's the other thing, is rather than just a presentation, I think they need to come prepared to have a back and forth discussion where we can say, these are our concerns, what are your thoughts on this, so we can have that back and forth. You know, what are...
Okay.
They're already zoned appropriately, really. I mean, they're already zoned for 600 houses. And that's almost what WPR have. They're just barely over that.
They have that much in their current zoning?
They said.
That's what they said,
Well, I didn't realize that.
572.
Because they've got a lot at the top of the Highlands. Okay.
And so I thought,
Yeah, well, and maybe that's part of the discussion, like, hey, we feel like you don't even need the resort.
because I felt
special.
like
I don't.
they were going to do all the housing and none of the amenities that they're bragging about.
That's the moneymaker, right?
Yeah, and so I just feel like it should be done in a way that, I mean, like when they said that the hotel, how did they say that?
2 units at a 600 each.
But they didn't want to build the hotel for a while out because
We
it-
need it now.
The village center couldn't be supported without the homes, and so they were saying that it.
But a hotel brings people in and that spends their money nightly, you know, so it didn't make sense to me.
Well, and I'm concerned too when we asked about how many miles of road they intended to have and they couldn't tell us. And that kind of thing is really vital. If the county's going to take over something, you know, some piece of infrastructure, we need to know the value of the infrastructure, we need to know the size of the infrastructure, we need to know the maintenance cost of that infrastructure, because otherwise we'd be fools to say, oh yeah, we'll take over those roads and not understand that there's 50 miles of roads that we're not prepared to deal
Otherwise,
with.
we'd tell them, just make them private.
Yeah, and what's the construction impact? That was brought up earlier, and I think you mentioned it, Commissioner Anderson, that construction is hard on roads. Well, if this is a 30-year project or a 20-year project, what are those roads going to look like in 20 years based on your phasing? And that's why I think the phasing is important to understand. You know, if you start phasing clear out the end of your project, and you're going to run down miles and miles of road to do it, you're going to tear all those roads up, and we're going to have to replace them, because after a year, they're ours, right? So anyway, those are, I think, the questions that we need answered and we need to understand is.
So it's a
And I'm
good
not
thing that
sure.
I was a space cadet and did not.
I just felt like there was a wide gap.
Yeah, I mean,
But I doubt they know exactly how wide the gap is, because I think we made general comments, but like on density, I think what they proposed doesn't line up with what they were identifying in terms of how they intended, their market. But I know I wasn't specific as to the number of units that I thought was appropriate. And I don't know that I know that number or that any of us do. But I don't want to actually push them back to their base zoning either, just because that base zoning is right above the Highlands. They would put it in all there, and I think you're going to get a better project by doing a resort planned community that has the different elements in it, and we address these issues. I think we could get a better project than just okay, they can come in for a subdivision plat application in the area that allows them to do it.
But we could swap some density here for density there and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I guess we can either direct them to try to address these issues based on not much information, just some very general direction, or we can have another meeting with them and be a little more specific in terms of what we think would be appropriate.
That's a good point too. I mean, maybe if they can come to the next meeting prepared to address the questions we did ask and prepared to receive a whole lot more.
Okay. I will work with Josh to get that email out.
The process of doing this with both WPR and Snow Basin was a year-plus long process from this point. Yeah, it was 2 years plus. Really on both of those projects, wasn't it? I mean, from this point, from the concept to actually getting to a point of having it together. So that was the other thing that I think was really off there, is there was this thought that, oh, we're just going to get this done by the end of the year. I don't see that happening. This is a long process that's going to take a while to go through and figure out. No, they're
Anyway.
There was
okay.
a lot of preliminary
was
meetings
a lot
before
more.
it came to,
yeah.
Yeah, 2017.
I mean, by the time you get to the actual public hearings, you're usually a year into this deal, you know, and then it's another year of public hearings and back and forth, and work sessions and whatever else. So these are long-term projects. They're not overnight, and I can tell you for sure, regardless of what it says on Morgan Moms, it took significantly longer than 6 months to go through that project. It might have been 6 months from the point where we had, you know, the first county commission public hearing on the project, but there had been 18 months of project before that. Back and forth, the planning commission, the county commission, meeting with them, talking about it, you know, them sending in new ideas, revising things. It's also for a developer, though, that's part of the process too, because they're going to look at things initially and say, well, we want to phase this way, and then they're going to go through and say, well, what about this product or that product, or maybe we do want to do townhomes, or you know what I mean? It takes them a while usually too. And I know they've been working, you know, this particular developer has been working on this for quite some time. This is not brand new to them either, but anyway.
Okay, so then the last thing that I have, item Z.
What about G?
Is that what you said?
What about G?
What about G?
You forgot that one.
Oh, the application.
Oh, sorry.
process.
Yeah, I did
We
hop,
need
didn't
that
I? So the application of the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity, so GOEO, the $200,000 grant that we apply for every year, that's the money where we usually give $50,000 towards SBA small business community grants for community growth opportunity. That's coming up for reapplication. It is not a match grant, but I just wanted to make you aware that we're reapplying for that.
I thought it was due before now.
Nope.
It's actually
We just turned in our
August
final report.
30th.
Yeah.
August 30th.
I don't know why I was thinking it was on
No.
the fiscal year.
The end of it had to be done by, the last one had to be done by June 30th.
Yeah.
We got that done, but the new application has to be in
By August 30.
August 30th.
Yeah.
They're doing it earlier this year is what they're doing.
Yeah, it used to be,
It used to be now.
no, it is now.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
right
okay.
now.
Yeah.
Never mind.
And on that, the Community Economic Opportunity Board, they were wanting to come before the commission quarterly to give you updates on some of the businesses that received those grants. I'm not against putting them on as a presentation, but I do want to limit that time as we tend to go late anyway. So if they could condense it to like a 10, 15-minute presentation once a quarter, is that they're probably and I go to a lot of meetings, but they're a very diligent group. They very much so are appreciative and work very hard for that,
They used
with
to
that
not
grant
be.
funds.
They are now.
It's very organized.
An email update would be great. But
You-
then
okay.
If they come to the meeting, that's fine, but I agree with
I
Amy.
prefer written.
Well, I think there's probably more that they'd like to share than they could share in 10 or 15 minutes.
Correct.
So maybe we could say, hey, you know, we'd love for you to come and give us a 15-minute update, but
You
if
can
there's
submit
more,
a packet.
you know, feel free to send us your
Okay.
information separately. I mean, I don't want them to feel like we don't want to listen. We
Right.
certainly do.
Let's
and we
just
should
get the
these
highlight
out.
reel.
Okay. Maybe we could record.
But these
some-
meetings, I mean, we're 4.5 hours in already. to this
Right.
meeting.
Listen, I
Let's
thought we were
look.
gonna be done at 7.
HZ, 9Z. So our last meeting, we approved this, that essentially said the Morgan County, and this is my version of paraphrasing. The Morgan County Commission awarded the project to Calvin L. Wadsworth Construction Option B if the following conditions are met. One, the contractor was able to complete the project by September 30th, or the State of Economic Opportunity grants of the county an extension to account for the current anticipated completion date, which was the end of October. And two, with the verification that the proposal bid included the full boiler system, not just the pipe and connection to a boiler system to be installed at a future date and not covered in the bid. If Calvin L. Wadsworth Construction is unable to meet the conditions above, the project will then be awarded to Skinny T Construction if they are able to meet the above conditions. No one was able to meet the above conditions because it was not in the RFP for the boiler system. So because we didn't really anticipate that, I'm kind of at a standstill
So
on.
let's see the, drop
Sorry.
it down so I can see the 3 bid amounts. There you go, 4 bid amounts.
Now,
So the concern with, that Mark Miller brought up with not putting the heat in at the same time is that it is a skin. And he's concerned that we will pretty much destroy it by not putting the heat system in.
When you say
Do
system,
we have the heat
They-
system engineered?
like a boiler or something.
we had an engineer do it.
I didn't-
There was one
Do the
that did.
RFP, but they haven't engineered a system itself, right?
No, not completely.
And do we know about a cooling system, how that would
That's
work?
all part of the cooling and heating system.
the boiler
You're
would
gonna cool it
cool?
with the water through the floor? I don't think that's gonna
I'm
cool a
wondering,
dome,
I,
glass dome.
um,
So, my concern at this point is, I don't want to put together a structure that's unusable because we don't have an HVAC system in it.
okay.
Or a structure that's going to fall apart because we don't have an HVAC system in it. And I realize that an HVAC system is an added cost. I think we ought to understand what that cost is. I assume that we didn't put the boiler in to try to keep costs down, so.
No, I thought they were doing it. That's what I had
You
thought.
thought it was in the
originally
RFP?
with that.
I do.
However, since then,
The RFP is pretty,
extensive.
well, but it's very explicit that the boiler's not included the way.
Yeah, according to what they've done. But my question is this, and I know that going back to the drawing board is not good, but, or maybe can't be done, but can we just, I mean, the state parks, when I met with them last week on that, they would prefer the heating, the boiler system, because then the maintenance is less. However, they were okay if we put in the mini splits. But then we did not bid it with the mini splits. So then we have that question is, do you go out for do you just scrap that part of it? I know you can't do that, but if you scrap that part of the bid, or you go out for a rebid again, then everybody's gonna be, you can't do that either, because everybody knows this.
Send out an amendment.
Okay, so if you send out an amendment to the bid, now if, do you just send it to Calvin Wadsworth, or do you send it to all 4? Okay, I was gonna say, because if you send it to all of them, then you can allow them also that because Calvin Wadsworth said, if I can't do it by September 30th unless you pay the extra overtime. So if that's the case, then we need to allow the others to have the same option of, okay, you've got now till the end of October to do this project. And with an amendment to put in put in the boiler. What's your bid gonna be?
Well, and actually, didn't the state approve us to complete it by year end?
Yeah, we have to be completed by year end, but snow comes. We need to get that thing done.
So
before-
the other question that I have is, in terms of parking and stuff, is there a parking availability? Does that
The
still need to be
parking-
constructed?
No, we do not have to do the parking this year because there's ample parking this year. But part of the plan was to put in a parking lot.
Yeah. And are
And-
they expecting us to cover that?
No, at that point, we'll put it into another phase, but we can't do that now until next year because it's already over for Part B grants. So we can't even apply. We asked, Kate tried last week or 2 weeks ago. She tried to get it and she could not. They says, until you finish the one, you can't get another one.
So how many years of Part B grants are we gonna take to do this
Till
project?
But we
we
can't
get-
even apply for another one until, like, they won't give us any more funding in Part B.
It's up to us how far we want to take it.
So, and yes, sorry, you did bring up, and I forgot to mention that part of that question was, would they give us an extension? And they said yes to the end of the year.
So, and maybe I need to understand
2
this
more
just
months.
a little bit better, but so heating system, cooling system, whatever that may be, were we gonna have any, water, culinary water, sink,
water-
bathroom?
The water is going to be to that spot.
Right.
And then at that point,
Plumbing and
at
stuff.
that, basically interior plumbing is going to be a small kitchen area or, counter area. And as far as sewer, we're not expecting any sewer, period, in that.
No
thing.
restroom.
No
Well,
restroom.
Well, but you
If
gotta have
you
sewer
gotta-
for a
gotta have a
sink if you
drain.
gotta.
What's that?
A drain.
Yeah, we're
Like
gonna
if you
have to
have a
have a
sink, then the
drain,
drain
and they're
goes
gonna
to
have
sewer.
that. And they are willing to work with all that later. But right now, we need to get this in. The state parks said, well, that's right, nobody was here but me, that they said that we will reevaluate it in 6 months afterwards to determine whether or not, the other things we need to do for these consumers or these people that are gonna be coming to the place. Part of it is furnishings. We don't have anything for furnishings. We don't have anything for 3B. We don't have anything for electrical. So for us to be able to do this, we're gonna have to come up with either some more money or wait for another year to get a lot in. But I don't wanna do that because there's other things that, some of the other things that came about were that we could, I lost my train of thought. The amount, they were willing to go and give us a certain amount, evaluate it every 6 months. They're sending us a contract to this, to where we will get part of the rents. And the rents are besides what we get with TRT.
So I guess the thought I have with this is it feels like, talking about a shell, it feels like we're literally doing a shell of a project. And I guess the thought I have would be in order to make this functional in the use that we want it to be used for, I would be interested in however the funds come about. I think we need to know the total cost to move forward with it also. Versus, it initially started at 100, right? And then maybe it was 200 more, and then all of a sudden the dome was just 100 or just whatever, 87. And now we have 270 for the site work, and that's without a boiler or the kitchen area or heating and cooling. I guess what I would want to see is, okay, what do we think the total cost would be? And then we can at least say yes or no on that total price. I don't feel
Feels
like
like
I'm
the
seeing it
costs
all.
are spiraling a little bit out of control.
Yeah, but I'm willing to give it to any one of you.
Well, I
Because
don't
I'm
want it.
tired. Give it to Jared.
I don't think Jared wants it.
Oh.
He's the engineer.
If everybody agrees to an amount that we know is going to cover everything, I think then we move forward. I just don't know how willing everybody is to say.
With that amount, if it's going to be $500,000 by the time we're done with this,
I don't want
I'd rather see that money spent elsewhere, to be honest. And
I
we're
agree.
approaching that. We're at 400,000 now.
Yeah.
And by the time you add HVAC and kitchen and furnishings and parking,
Now,
I bet you're
one
gonna
of
be
the
another
things,
100,000.
one of the things with furnishings, because of the different kinds of events, instead of putting in that, besides we don't have a building to put them in, or a barn, or a storage unit to put them in,
You're talking like tables and chairs.
tables and chairs, or desks and chairs, or whatever it is, we had discussed with the state parks, and the person I was talking to was the deputy director and the contract negotiation person that's over all events in the state. And she was saying that we could go ahead and rent from a company to begin with till we have some money coming in. We could rent and ask for a particular company or a company or a group of companies to what would be the cost of tables and chairs for 400 people or 200 people.
When you say we, state parks would be doing that, wouldn't they, as part of their
Yes.
management of it?
Yes.
That's not our
That's
responsibility.
not us, no. But
So the other question I had is, your overall vision, and correct me if I'm wrong, included a village, right?
Yes.
With smaller domes. Do we have any idea on cost for
yeah.
the whole project?
No, not for the whole project, because I don't even know right now exactly how many individual units it would be. But even if we could do like 2 or 3 of them a year, it would help.
My concern is, if
They're
you're planning on using
approximately-
that Part B grant, I don't think we ought to use that every single year for this project for the next 5 years or whatever it is. There's other things that we could use that money for, you know, if we could apply for a grant. That's my thought, at least. Now, if others want to use that Part B grant every year for the next X number of years to do the whole thing, great. I just, personally, that's not
There's a
something
lot
I
of
think-
different grants that we can get. There's like 4 different ones that we can get, or 5 different ones that we can get. One of them is, I mean, Part B is not it anymore. It's got different names for it. And so there's a grant for that we can continue with these phases. And then there's other grants for education, and there's other grants for other things. Anyway, so those are, yeah, there's your thing right there. Yeah, and at that point, we're looking at a lot of money, but hopefully this brings in enough to pay for a lot of that too. And I don't know how it's going to be. The vision, I wish we had not ever done it right now.
I just felt like it was their project that we were helping with, and now it feels like it's our project that they're helping a little bit with. That's how I.
Whether they help or not, we're gonna pay for it to be done. and
Actually,
they're
it was
gonna
not
take
their
over.
project.
Yeah,
It is not their project.
You took it to them in the first place, right? The state
This
parks
was-
didn't come to us and say, will you do this?
Chris Haramoto, the manager at the time, was in a meeting, in our economic development meeting, and in that meeting, they did not suggest it. Our DMO person that we had went and suggested this kind of a program because nowhere else in this area has anything like it as a stargazing type of a project.
What's DMO?
DMO, Destination Management Organization. And so that person had the vision of it. James Ebert went with it. And so we ended up having this project. And that's when they applied for the grant. This was probably right after you left the economic development, was the next year. And so we took it over and we went with this project, and now it's sitting there.
And I think
would love to
his
give it to
initial
you.
estimate, like we were saying, was $100,000 for
$160,000
yeah,
was
for
our
the dome
original.
and all the utilities and everything, and it
Yeah.
just isn't
And it's
close
just
to that.
escalated because we didn't get it done within that first year, unfortunately.
Well, and
Yeah, but we
Well,
gotta sell a dome.
we have the dome.
We
right.
have the dome. And yes, the company said, I called and asked them.
That's not a bad hay thing.
A what?
A hay barn.
Yeah, but I don't wanna spend $185,000 to do it. So we would have to pay them back $75,000 because we've only received the first 75%. And so we only have to pay them back the $75,000, which means it's costing the county, it's gonna cost them all the engineering, and it's gonna cost them the difference between what we can get for the dome by selling it to whoever, and we could sell it back to.
What if we
the company.
included the dome somehow in the fair campground area or something like that. Maybe it's a,
Does that cost us less to move it elsewhere? I don't know.
It's on, so I asked Brett, he said it's because I said, what if we put it on ice and just until we get grants that can help us put it up? And he said it's on 4 pallets, so
Yeah.
it's movable.
Yeah,
It
it's
is
movable.
movable if we
Yeah,
wanted
it
to
came
do
in a
something else.
20-foot storage container.
That one is sitting in your house now?
No, it's not my house.
Can you flip down in those pictures to where there was the dome?
I mean, it is good for being there because of the light situation. It's dark skies designated international lights. It's for the astral tourism that we're trying to bring to this valley. That they will stay here and stay in these domes, or even the yurts, or the covered wagons that we've spent money on, or just in the trailers they have up there, or the twin home, or what are they called, tiny home they have up there.
We can't have tiny homes, I already asked.
What's that?
We can't have tiny homes, I already asked.
We've already got one tiny home up there.
No, I mean,
It's not us though.
in the
it's the
county.
state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
is this who we bought this from, Luna Glamping?
Yes.
Can I get a number from him?
It's in your emails.
I will send it.
Thank you.
They said they would buy it back because they do have customers that want this. But for what price? I don't know.
I'm just sitting here looking at this she's been scrolling through this, and I'm sitting here looking at this done on a wood base, and I'm thinking, why is Mark saying this is going to fall apart without heating and cooling? I'm just,
Well, it's not
Trying
going
to
to be on
figure
a wood
that
base
out.
for one. It won't be on a wood base. It'll be on concrete.
I understand that, but I'm just saying, he's saying that without heating and air,
It's insulated,
it's going to
so I
fall
don't know.
apart. And I'm thinking,
That's skin.
if this is done for like camping and stuff,
I think though,
I don't-
Matt,
Talking about
they
the skin.
typically take the skins off of these small
Okay.
ones during the winter.
Yeah,
Talking about
Okay.
the skin.
but we're not
You
taking
don't
it
for
off.
a big one, would you?
What's that?
You wouldn't for a large one,
No,
would you?
this one is supposed to last us over 20 years.
but only if it's heated and air. I just want to call these people. and
I'm
talk to
not
them.
sure. You can
Okay.
call him. I'll send you his number if Kate doesn't have it.
Yeah.
In fact, I might have it right here.
But if push comes to shove, I think we ought to look at maybe giving the money back and relocating it if we can use it in our, for something in exhibitions, not an exhibitionist, but an exhibition building or
exhibition hall.
something, you know?
An exhibition dome.
60 meters.
Maybe
Yeah,
auction,
18
maybe
meters.
auction the animals in it,
60
you know?
feet.
60 feet, yeah, sorry.
I don't know if it could be an auction room or,
Do that calculation in your head.
thank you.
I don't know, but I'm concerned about the cost going up and up and up,
Me
no
too.
matter what. I think we need to understand though the total cost for the project.
So what is your action for me?
I don't know. How do we find that out? I guess
Just send
we
it to
revise the bid.
Well,
Can I try and help on this?
Yeah.
I'll be happy to try and help, but I'd like to talk to him first.
So, Matt, if you're willing to talk to them and see exactly what they think the requirements are for HVAC or whatever the system is, and then in order for it to be a long-lasting project, if we need to include it, then I think we have it rebid with that heating system, whatever that is, and then we make a decision based upon a number and a bid. I mean, I don't know, we're in August though.
I know.
Yeah.
You know, but, and maybe if we know that it does, maybe that makes a decision. It's like we don't have time. What was that? So there was just a vent going out the top. Was that for a?
Which one? Right there? That is the... that
No,
is the-
no, keep going back. That's the curtain kit. Yeah, right there, stove jack. Oh, so it's just,
If you
that's like
wanted
a
to do that.
smaller one you can put in a heated stove.
Yeah, you could. So they could, we could read it that way if you want, but I don't.
But maybe if it requires additional heat, I mean, maybe you can ask them with this size of a unit what their experience is in terms of how they're heated and what the cost of fluid is. Maybe we can just add that.
I
to
think
what
it
we
tells
have.
you within the information, if you go through it, it'll tell you what your requirements are.
Okay.
At least that's what they told me before. So if that's the case, what are we going to do?
Yes.
We're gonna find out information, wait another 2 weeks, resubmit the bids, or are we gonna have a special meeting where we come back and discuss this so we can make a decision after Kate's gone and talked to each one of the contractors to, I mean, that's what I'm asking, is what are we gonna do?
Just,
Because if
just
we
give me
keep-
till the next meeting to do some homework, and I can bring something back.
Are you gonna be here?
What is it? Is it
the
September?
September 3rd?
I'll
You're
I'll
leaving?
have something back before that.
Because I'd like to get it out to the,
Is it September 3rd?
yeah, is our next
I'll be
meeting.
here.
Okay, you're leaving before.
The 4th.
So, and then it'll take us another week to get back to the contractors? Or what? I don't think we should go out for new contractors,
127 square.
which isn't that big.
Exhibition space.
It fits
Yeah, that's
400
pretty large,
people
that's a
standing.
pretty large dome.
Little smaller than 3,000 square feet.
They have, there's a place down in Escalante, which next, anyway, I'm gonna be going to visit. They get $3,000.
So I think if when you're talking to them, and you're kind of in this business as well, so, I mean, if you thought that adding the HVAC system, because it already included the piping, if we thought that reason, you know, a wag at best, you know, it's another $35,000 when we just added to one of those bids, I think during the same time period, we should prepare the bid amendment and send it out, or be ready to send it out as soon as we talk on the
Okay. I'm just surprised
Speed it up.
that it ranged from what, $8,000 to $40,000 for the piping.
bid. That's
That blew my
surprising
mind.
to me too, you know. I mean, there's a significant difference between the high to the low bid, but there's also significant differences in categories, and I understand that different people have different places where they put their profit, but there were some pretty extreme differences there. Okay.
That it?
Oh, that was plenty.
Wow, yeah.
I'm hungry.
You know, if you would have put each of those as a separate item, that agenda would have been 4 pages long. Okay.
We'd have a 500-page thing again.
Commissioner comments, Commissioner Anderson. You're up. I waited till you had a mouthful.
So I've got had a fun 2-hour meeting. Sorry, Jeremy. Had a fun 2-hour meeting today. This outdoor recreation initiative. Had a meeting with that group. We're the northern region. There's 6 regions in the state and $30 million for each region. They're really excited about getting this money out to us. So I, in particular, want to talk to you, Commissioner Fackrell, about projects that would qualify, and then bring it before the other commissioners' next meeting of what we think we could do to submit for this. It's fairly new, so we're not going to have a whole lot of submittals this year, so I think it's actually the best time to submit.
Right.
I asked them some pretty direct questions on what the prioritization is for it, so I'll get with you, but it's a very exciting fund. There are no matching dollars. So it's really, really exciting. But anyways,
We've got a great trail system up there at the village, the Dome Village.
and
That's right.
it's outdoor recreation, but they really focused on whether it's running or biking or, it wasn't the recreation, fantasy football, so anyway, it's pretty exciting, but I'll get with you on that, Commissioner. But, and we already discussed I-84 interchange, so that's all I've got.
I don't really have anything new to report. We're still waiting on pricing for the trash hauler to figure out the recycling thing, but appreciate those that participated in that discussion. We'll have more discussion on that soon. Commissioner Fackrell.
You reading it? Okay, Brett Heiner reached out to me today, and I was also concerned about the trail down there, the one that was the ADA compliant we have to get for the crosswalk. So I went down there with Brett and to discuss that in particular, and I have what would happen if we had to do it. We have 130 feet of trail we'd have to put in. And
Is that because it stops way short of there? Is that?
it's because the edge of the west side of Trappers Loop becomes, and Jeremy doesn't want me to do it. I've got pictures of it. Anyway, from there over to the Sinclair sign where the dyno is, there is, it's weeds, and it's a ditch or a creek where the drainage comes in from 3 different ways and goes into that one spot. So something would have to be engineered to put in the trail. Brett says he would put it all in if we give him the approval, and we talked to whoever engineer we have, Mark Miller, to design it. But we have that, and we have to find out where the right-of-way is first, to find out if it's Sinclair's or if it's state highway. And then go through the parking lot, basically leave it as is, and maybe put paint as the trails to go through there. And then it was 60 and then 70 feet is what it was to the existing trail. And then we would be compliant and we can get the crosswalk. But the question I have...
But there was never a trail across the front of Old
That's
Farm.
right. There's nothing across Old Farm. So it ends at one point, and then there's nothing, 130 feet worth. Or actually, it's more than that because of the parking lot. And so to get all that put in, we'd have to have bids on that if we decide we want to do that. According to what Brett has found out from the project over here at the fairgrounds, of $50 a linear foot for a 10-foot walk or sidewalk or trail. That was $50 a foot, so you're figuring, that price plus the culverts and bringing in some fill to put over the top of the culverts and the water so the drainage can continue to happen. So there's going to be some costs in there. I was just quickly doing it in my head as between $10,000 and $12,000 probably. But then that also depends on who does it.
You're saying just for the engineering?
No,
For the trail?
for the whole thing. I don't know what the
Sure it's not
engineer.
cheap?
Well, 50.
Because we spent more than that on that little bit of trail.
We only spent, for that 110 feet, we spent $4,950.
Well, because they're already mobilized and the ground was wet.
That's right. But what I'm saying is that's something we would have to determine. And Brett says he will find out an approximate bid as to what it would cost. And then we can go from there. He also mentioned as far as the trail going, the one that we voted on last week, that trail, he was trying to get an extension with the city on the city bid that already did theirs and did ours, and see if we can extension off of that to do that one too, along with our engineering, with whatever engineering we got. So he's working on that. He also asked me a special request for the Enterprise Park. Jared and you and I have been down there to see it. The Enterprise Park, needs to have a new overlay, not an overlay. Yeah, it is, a new overlay on the trail and in the parking lot. That one, he gave me a cost of, I figured it was, from what he had been told by John Beauregard from Wasatch City, it would be about $65,000. Okay, and he says if we hold off and wait until later, I mean like next year, he says what will happen is we may end up tearing it all up and re-putting it and stuff. It's that bad. And Jared, you can attest to that. When you saw it with us, Brett and I.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Was he going to include that in his capital improvement projects during budget?
he wants to put in a chip seal for it if we can get this one done. There are funds that we could do it from, and that is the funds that we've been receiving on sales tax.
All of his transportation work can be done using those funds.
All
So-
kinds of transportation can be done.
All
But
of
this one
his.
is a recreation project to a point. So we have some discretionary funding there that we're gonna have to look at. But anyway, that's a point we could possibly discuss, but he would like us to consider it and maybe discuss it at the next meeting. Okay? And, there is also some other grants, letters of intent with WFRC for some planning for other projects. I would like to explore them. I have not explored it yet as to which ones potentially we can get. Most of them would be maybe planning grants to plan some of our stuff around here, whatever it might be. I don't know. I'd have, because of the safety, the safety plan that was done by WFRC, that is giving us a little bit more leverage than what we had before. So if you want me to at least look at them, then bring them back to you. They're only letters of intent that are due by September 30th. And at that point, then if they think it's a viable project, then they'll come back to us with costs and all that those kinds of things. And if we want to go forward, we can.
Do you have a list of projects that you intend to submit?
I can send it to you. Because I have not gone through them all yet.
So they'll help pay for county roads planning.
Will they?
No, I'm asking.
I don't know.
Oh.
They will help us in whatever planning efforts we need.
Yeah,
that
I
would
think
be-
it'd be
that would be
helpful to
awesome.
see
I haven't
the list
seen
of
that.
what they'd
Yeah.
What
be
they'll
willing to
do.
help with.
I mean, this
So-
crosswalk is one of them that they may give us help with. And, I mean, the state said, according to what Kate told us last time, is that they would pay for the crosswalk or the paint for it, but we had to bring up the trail. And yet that's on state property, so, and they're gonna give us the permits for that. So I don't know. So, I mean, if they would help us with some of that cost of the trail, it would be great also. But Brett says he would put it in just like he did on the one on Cottonwood. That one that goes around the corner, you know where it is, by Dredge. Jesse Dredge's place. It's off the corner and it comes down for a walking. It attaches now to another existing trail. And I also asked Brett to get together costs of what it costs to maintain these paved trails. So that way I can bring it to you guys as a plan. And there was one more thing. That was 78,000. No, that was the other one. 68,000 for the Enterprise Park. And you're in luck, I think that's it. The weed board, that's the only other thing we gotta work on.
Sorry, I was just telling Commissioner Newton that this fund also pays for maintenance of trails.
Yes, it does. It does. There's 2217 that is under the direction of the COG, and doesn't mean they can have it all, but I mean, it's basically, it's an advisory The COG is an advisory group to us. We can then decide if we want to use the 2217 funds for projects that are regional, and then with the 2219. Oh, you mean the one that you?
I'm meaning the one that the meeting
recreational
I had
ones?
today.
Okay, all right,
Yep,
good.
which is awesome. I don't.
Good.
So anyway,
Can
So
I make a
anyway.
request on that? When you come back with the next meeting for that project enterprise, will you make sure that you have the fund balances and all of those funds so we can see what's currently in there? I mean, I know we can look it up on,
I've already given it to you.
I struggle to look that up on Cassell.
I've got
It's
everything.
very not user-friendly, in my opinion.
I agree.
Maybe because I don't know how to use it as well.
So that spreadsheet that I sent you a couple of weeks ago, that included everything that we've received in sales taxes from the beginning of me being a commissioner until now.
So is that the fund balance?
Those are the fund balances. Well,
Of those-
no,
of
those are the
those-
revenues.
That's revenues, and that's why I say I'd like
Fund
to see the
balance
actual balance of
for
what's
the-
in each of those funds.
For the 2217 and 2219, nothing has been used from it yet. Unless somebody used it without,
well, the bridge.
no, we didn't use anything out of that. We took it from general fund.
For the $1 million from the bridge? That's not what I understood.
Oh, no, that comes out of that other account. That didn't come out of the general fund.
No, it did not. And it's a payment
We'll
of...
we'll let Kate figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah, it was never intentioned to come out of
Well,
the general fund.
and see, and that was
It was
my,
not.
the Young Street Bridge, I'd like to see it come out of
Payment on the
the
Young Street Bridge.
2217.
We paid the city on a
which is
monthly
the
basis. And it came out of COG, and it came out of that,
2217 fund.
yeah, 2217. So are you agreeing now?
That is where I would wanted it to come from, but I think we took it out of something else.
Okay, well, we can get that corrected.
So we
if
can get
did
that
go out.
corrected and figured out before the end of the year.
Okay, perfect.
What invoices?
Who?
Oh, to pay to the city? I don't know, I've never seen one.
Well, they sent one to us in June. We paid it in July. I'll go back and look.
Yeah, we can find it in a meeting.
Yeah.
We all agreed to
Yeah,
it.
we all
we
agreed
did.
to it.
Well, who's writing the checks, right? So, okay.
Okay?
Is that it? Okay, Commissioner McConnell.
The YCC will do its summer soiree in September. I guess it's more fall, but September 19th at the Eccles Art Center courtyard. If any of you are interested, I can send you that invitation. Greg and Maria Trollins contacted me about a trail, wanting a trail installed between basically Mountain Green and Morgan. I told them there's a committee that's working on those sorts of issues and invited them to participate, and they said they'd be glad to. So what do we need to do to onboard them onto that? Is that
Just
something
come on
where
the 16th, because that's our next meeting.
8/16?
It's September 16th.
9/16.
9/16. That's an idea. You know, it's actually, that's what's been done in many areas of the country. When I went to the trail conference, that's what they did. There was a lot of small communities that did not have funds, and they went first to the jars in the community, had bake sales and all that kind of stuff, and they went to GoFundMe and other kinds of online things, and they actually had a lot of dollars. Now they've got programs with 5 people in it. So,
That's all I have.
Perfect. Commissioner Wilson.
I just, if you're okay with me asking the meeting to be included on the plan commission minutes. I think that would be.
Watching the meeting takes a lot of time. Yeah, that's a great idea. Okay. Is that it? Do we have anything else?
What is 2217?
2217 is the law,
Oh, the law, I was like,
It's
what
the
the heck
law.
fund is 22? Okay,
It's
sorry.
the
I was
law,
Yeah, but
it's
that's
the
fine.
sales tax, and we have a specific fund.
It's that 1/4%,
It's
one of
quarter-
the quarters.
One of the quarters.
the 5th quarter or something,
Yeah.
however that works.
So the way that we use those funds is kind of well, it is restricted. So we have to determine what we're going to do with those.
Garrett, do we have any need to discuss anything closed session? Are you good?
I think we're okay.
Okay.
It's been a long meeting. And
Okay, sounds good. All right.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.